regular board. Welcome to the San Mateo-Foster City School District regular board meeting. Today is, oh wait, no, yeah, I'm moving along. Today is August 28th, 2025, and we will call this meeting to order. We will call San Mateo Park up for the lead and the flag salute, please.
Bienvenidos a esta reunión de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de San Mateo-Foster City. Tenemos un intérprete para los participantes que necesitan traducción al español. Para escuchar la junta en español, presione el icono del mundo en su pantalla. Muchas gracias. Bienvenidos a esta reunión de la mesa directiva.
Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand on your heart and ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we'll do roll call. Trustee Hope?
Here.
Trustee Tran? Trustee Proctor?
Here.
Trustee Kemp?
Here.
And I am here, Trustee Brooks. May I please get an approval for the agenda for August 28th, please?
Motion to approve the agenda for tonight. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And may I get a motion to approve minutes for May 22nd, 2025, and June 26th?
I'll make a motion to approve those two sets of minutes. I did want to note that there are some clerical errors in the May 22nd meeting, and just as a future note, when public comments are made, it would be nice to keep those forms so that we can make sure we get the names of the folks who spoke correctly as well. So other than the clerical edits, no substantive corrections to those. So we'll make a motion to approve those minutes with direction to staff to make some corrections to spelling errors on the May 22nd set of minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're going to move to all public statements related to agenda items. Persons will be called on at appropriate times. And we are now going to do our updates from SMFCAA.
So you either can speak in here or one of these.
Distinguished board members, Superintendent Ochoa, parents, staff, and all joining us both in person.
A todos los miembros de familia, personal, Superintendente Ochoa, gracias por estar acá en persona.
Good evening. My name is Dustin Demakis, and I currently serve as the assistant principal at Fiesta Gardens International School. I also have the privilege of serving as the president of the San Mateo-Foster City Administration Association for the 2025-2026 school year. We are here tonight to personally introduce ourselves and share our roles as the Smith-FICA board this year. Our board members consist of Jeanette Ramirez Posa for Multilingual and Community Schools team, Dr. Ryan Haven, Director of Facilities, M&O, Stephanie Gibson, Coordinator of Enrollment, Leah Parsons, Principal at Foster City Elementary School, Natalie Della Hunt, Principal of Lead Elementary School.
And I'm Carrie Hazelton. I'm the Vice President of the San Mateo Foster City Administrators Association. And we'd like to share our vision with you tonight. It is to aspire, empower, champion, and elevate the voices of our leaders to support our students, families, and the community. Our organization is dedicated to uniting the leaders of San Mateo Foster City School District, including the directors, principals, assistant directors, assistant principals, managers, and coordinators towards a common goal of advocacy, collaboration, networking, and relationship building. Our plan is to carry this vision forward by fostering meaningful collaboration among our site leaders, actively listening to the needs of our administrators, and communicating those needs directly with our Superintendent Ochoa. Additionally, we aim to create opportunities for our leaders to connect and build relationships in settings beyond the workplace. Thank you. And then can I bring up Highlands next? All right, come on up, my Highlands crew. All right, so as you know, I'm Carrie Hazelton. I'm also the principal up at Highlands Elementary School. And tonight I have 3 outstanding student leaders. I have Gabby, Leah, and Miranda. And the first few weeks of our school have been truly exceptional. Highlands is a special place, and we are fortunate to be part of such a strong, supportive school community. We are excited to share some highlights that capture the spirit and success of our school.
My name is Gabby, and I'm in 5th grade. One of my favorite memories at Highlands is the 4th grade overnight field trip to Coloma. It was so much fun learning about California's history with my classmates. I also love our beautiful new NPR. It's a great space for assemblies and events.
My name is Leah, and I am in 5th grade. Each year we do a fun tie-dye shirt event with the PTA. Every grade gets a different color. TK is gray, kindergarten is red, 1st grade is orange, and so on, creating a school-wide rainbow. I'm really looking forward to 5th grade outdoor education this year.
My name is Miranda, and I am in 5th grade. Some of my favorite memories at Highlands are being part of school plays. My favorite plays that I did was Willy Wonka and Beauty and the Beast, which I got Belle. I also really loved our 4th grade overnight trip to Coloma. It was such a cool experience.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to CSEA. Online. Joe?
Checking. I don't see Ms. Bishop. Fine.
Okay. We can come back, yeah. And anyone from SMETA?
Good evening, everyone. Members of the school board, Superintendent Ochoa, district staff, and community members. I'm happy to be here tonight on behalf of the educators of the San Mateo Elementary Teachers Association as we kick off the 25-26 school year. As always, the first weeks of school come with a mix of excitement, nerves, and a whole lot of to-do lists. But thanks to a huge collective effort, our classrooms are open, our students are learning, and we're off to a strong start. I want to take a moment to especially highlight the incredible work that went into the campus swap between Fiesta Gardens and College Park. Moving 2 entire school communities is no small feat, and yet it was done with care, teamwork, and good humor. We want to recognize the deep collaboration between district leadership, school site teams, and our amazing classified colleagues. From custodial and maintenance crews to IT, front office staff, and beyond. The level of coordination it took to get both campuses cleaned, moved, set up, and ready for students by day 1 was nothing short of impressive. Everyone rolled up their sleeves, stayed flexible, and put students first. That kind of spirit is what makes our district special. We're looking forward to continuing those positive partnerships as we tackle the work ahead, supporting students, advocating for safe and well-resourced classrooms, and making sure every educator, and staff member feels valued in the work they do. In addition, I want to share that SMETA, along with the California Teachers Association, is closely following and supporting efforts around the temporary redistricting of California's congressional areas, recognizing how critical fair representation is to the future of our schools and communities. Here's to a strong and collaborative school year. Thank you.
We will move to okay, we'll take foundation, please.
Is this already on? Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Ochoa, Board of Trustees, public, and our honorees who are here tonight. Welcome back to a new school year. I'm excited to share some updates from the Education Foundation. This summer, we coordinated a school supply drive. This was Gilead Medical Affairs Department's third annual school supply drive for the Title I elementary schools in our district. We added to this effort our new partner, Verkada, and we shared it out with the community. The end result was donations of 756 items worth $4,700, which were delivered to the schools before school started. We also worked closely with Susie Riley, and we did a backpack initiative for all 22 schools. So the end result of that is we distributed 940 backpacks, thanks to Samaritan House and Costco, with school supplies provided by the Quiz Collective and some of our funds. Now to our big check presentation. I'm gonna ask Janelle is Janelle here yet? Okay, Christina's gonna do it. Tag, you're it. Each year, the San Mateo-Foster City Education Foundation presents our big check, which is our gift to the district for this school year. The funds were donated during the 24-25 school year by parents and community members through our annual drive, the readathon, and our community and partners and sponsors who support us. This check for $670,287, I know you have to come all the way up here. So this check funds $180,000, which is school grants that go directly to our 22 school sites for assemblies, bus transportation to field trips, and staffing for out-of-classroom programs like the Lego Labs and middle school clubs. The check also provides to our district middle school athletics, summer camp scholarships, matching grants for the SMETA teacher grants, Best Buddies program, middle school musical instruments, library books, and our newest advancement in STEM education, Project Career Map, which you'll be hearing more about later tonight. I am now going to hand it over to our school board president for recognition of our sponsors from our 24-25 school year.
Thank you. Tonight, the school board, Superintendent Diego Ochoa, and the Education Foundation are jointly acknowledging and honoring 10 entities whom sponsorship and grant support has benefited the students in our district this school year. We would like to present those in attendance with their recognition certificates and take a photo with each group. This year's sponsors include, at the platinum level, for the Gilead Foundation, we have Federico Pacheco joining us this evening. The Gilead Foundation has been a crucial partner of the Education Foundation and the district since 2018, funding science, safety, and STEM, investing over $2.4 million on behalf of our students and their futures. We will hear more about Gilead's most recent grant during the superintendent's report. While a Woodlawn Foundation representative could not join us this evening, Woodlawn has been a district partner supporting the Education Foundation's mission since 2003. Their grants enabling programming for students in music, arts, outdoor education, and athletics over the years total $180,000. Their 2024-25 school year, $25,000 donation funded new musical instruments for our middle school music programs. At the gold level, Michael Kai is here this evening and has been instrumental in helping us provide funding for school grants that principals use for out-of-class experiences for students, such as cultural assemblies and staffing for clubs and Lego labs. The Lego labs are the highlight of my tenure here as a trustee when I see the kids laughing and smiling as they do their Lego projects. At the silver level, the San Mateo-Foster City Education Foundation is thrilled to announce Verkada as their newest sponsor. We are excited to begin this partnership and deeply appreciate their commitment to supporting San Mateo-Foster City School District students. Sabrina George is here representing Verkada tonight. At the benefactor level, we thank all of these benefactors who represent local small businesses and municipalities who have helped support programs for our students this year. In attendance, we have, AALRR, represented by our very own Scott Holbrook and his colleagues. The City of Foster City, represented by City Council Member Phoebe Von Kat. Camp Galileo, represented by Douglas G. and Nicole Bowler. Happy Healthy Teeth, represented by Dr. Jonathan Lee and his father, Brian Lee, who founded the practice in 1972. PATH Reading Program, represented by Magdalena Zavalia, we would also like to thank the following sponsors who could not join us tonight. Apex Power Electrical Supply and Solutions for their consistent support year after year. Now we will move to the PTA Council. Anyone from PTA Council online? No? No, after.
Let's take a little break and take some photos. Yeah, we'll do that one because we have students presenting.
Okay.
Take a little bit longer.
Okay. You want to do the photos?
Let's take some pictures, folks.
Let's do it.
It's all of us.
That's not right, yeah. Should we go over there?
He wants us over there.
Okay.
Oh.
I mean,
How about I just go home and hold it? What's the point?
do one at a time or to the back.
No, I didn't do this. I'm also tall.
So it's Freddie umbrella. A block podium. I'm also wide.
What's the point? It's like 30 minutes per class. We're gonna be like walking, okay? Exercise. With your certificate. With your certificate. Oh, yes, yeah, that's my Try to figure that out in a smooth Miss Emil, we're gonna be doing.
That's gonna be.
We're gonna have a quiz. We'll have a
Take your time. Let's do it. You want it? I'll follow you guys. I'll follow you.
Diego, you're in the
But he only gave us like 10 minutes.
I wouldn't let it go
Do
wrong.
you need to boss us around?
I wouldn't let it go wrong.
Closer?
I get like 3 of you on this.
Am I holding it? I guess I'm holding it.
Christina, you're in here.
Right here, look at that.
You're taller than I am.
Christina, if you come around this way. I'm worried they might.
We're still too wide, yeah.
No, you're good.
You're good, thank you.
Ready, set, everybody looking at me, set, go. Got it.
Yeah, you want to take this away?
Just keep it there. Hang it on your wall.
So then we're gonna do try, Sharpie?
Oh, is it Tucker? Eventually we'll do a sustainable solution.
Just make this a little bit around here.
Okay. We'll part the C.
Yeah, part the seat right here. Yep, and everybody else will just stay in position.
We migrated.
She doesn't want to be in the rest. She's like, I did the one mandatory one.
Perfect, everybody looking at me, ready, set, go. One more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna do it.
Yeah, let's bring it.
Okay, A-A-L-R, believe me, the one.
Karina's gonna invite them up.
I am. Do you guys want to leave your bags? Here, just put them right here.
We got a long list. I was signing them earlier. I'm like, we got a dozen of these.
Hi, Karina. Oh, I have a twin sister named Erica, so. I'm Georgia. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I've been called Erica like all my life.
So there you go. I like that.
To the side. Turn to the side.
Good to see you guys under happier terms. No prices.
Everybody looking at me, ready, set, one more.
The letters mean something, right? And when you use the same letter, that's a really what's the point? There's 27 different letters to choose from. You choose A 4 billion times and they all mean different things. Am I supposed to remember that? No. I don't understand. Why not like K or J or S? They're very undervalued. I don't even want to talk about that.
Would you mind passing one with my photos? No problem. Feel free to take a
Everybody looking this way, ready, set, go. One more.
We'll get the yoga block
I
out.
don't know if you're back row. Want to come around? Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, around that side.
So nice.
Hasta Noelia. My way out. We're in the same.
I was wondering why I didn't go before.
And we're both.
Everybody looking this way, ready, set, go.
Well, then Mexico. Me too.
Okay, everybody looking this way. Set. Thank you.
Stevie, you're the final one. I can stand next to you. Oh, wait, one more.
I got home at 3:45 and then like you said the link. Boy, like your shoes. Look I even like that. I've had both their I'll just like email them right now. And then they both joined. I'm not Is Magdalena here?
I brought everyone like seats. Literally just like a piece of art. And also like on the name tag, we just have to.
Oh, I know.
It's on the back, so we have your name.
But I gotta wear to work, so. Oh, I guess by the third week,
My marketing team was like, oh no, let's try to stay here. Our marketing team is like, Lynn,
This is more on brand.
when they see it,
I love it.
Yes, I see it.
I really appreciate Sorry, I do not want to put you on the spot. She worked at so she
So exciting.
Oh yeah.
Having sushi in this, I'm gonna stand right there next to the I'm eating so much food. Yeah, just like, yeah, me too. Be like, why? I only ate fish for like a week. You're welcome. I don't eat pork. They don't have any chicken ostriches like aside from I'm like, I only eat so much. My number right there. Yeah.
There's something funny to be like, you put a
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now we will move to the announcements. Do we have any announcements from the board? Okay, go ahead. We can do committee reports.
We had a meeting with the city of San Mateo today, actually, and one of the things they wanted us to know about is that the Marina Library is getting a renovation. So it's going to be closed for about a year while they do that. And there's also been paving and road safety improvements throughout the city. And then, I think those are the major points. And then we had shared with them also that as some of you probably already know, a lot of our construction projects are nearing completion. So it's really exciting to see all of those happen. And then I just wanted to shout out again the Ed Foundation's backpack drive. It was a lot of work, a lot of people putting together things at the district office. So a lot of we're really grateful to our community partners, and then also to some of our kids showed up and helped us stuff backpacks. So there was a lot of singing K-pop Demon Hunter at the top of our lungs. That's it.
We'll go ahead and move to the superintendent.
All right. We have some pretty cool presentations for you this evening, but I am going to talk for just a minute about an experience I had on the first day of school. I was at Beresford Elementary School, and a parent stopped me and asked me if I was Principal Ochoa. And it's pretty common to have people, at one of our schools ask me if I'm the superintendent. I thought, oh, principal, that's kind of cool. I always liked that job. So yeah, I said yes. And he said, I'm from San Diego, and I used to be a principal in Southern California. I realized it was a student of mine from 20 years ago who was a 10th grade student who used to read books in the afternoon in the office, any book he could get his hands on. And he has a very powerful story, and at some point, I hope to introduce him to many of you. But suffice it to say, it was like a dream for him at that time. So he has two students he and his wife has two students at Beresford and another on the way, and he's a scientist at Merck. And I think it has a lot to do with what you're going to hear tonight, which is what it means to have structures and what it means to have guarantees about kids having access to a career map that is really powerful for them, and that makes a really big impact. So with that, I have a couple of people who are going to speak to you tonight. We have students that are here to address you, and we have one of our colleagues who works for the district office, and she's the former principal of North Shoreview, Montessori, and Laurel Elementary Schools, a longtime employee in the district, and she heads Project Career Map, which is part of a partnership that we have with the Gilead Foundation and with the San Mateo-Foster City Education Foundation, and you're going to hear directly from them. So with that, I'll pass it over to Karina, and then she'll pass it on to other folks who have something to say.
Thank you. Gilead is a wonderful example of a global company making deep impact in their local community through their commitment to building a pipeline of future STEM professionals while exposing kids to careers they might not otherwise know are an option. Over the past 8 years, the Gilead Foundation has generously provided $2.4 million in funding through the San Mateo-Foster City Education Foundation. These grants have brought to our district a 3-year science teacher on special assignment, the Lego labs we've been talking about all night, our middle school, college, and career exploration elective for 7th and 8th graders, and the career discovery labs for 4th to 6th graders. Each one of these has opened doors for students to discover their talents, explore possibilities, and dream big about their futures. This year, the Gilead Foundation donated $500,000 for a new STEM career discovery project that is really innovative and different. We are very excited to share more about Project Career Map with you. But first, you'll hear directly from the students whose lives are being shaped by these opportunities. I welcome up Sachi Sinha from Bowditch Middle School, Juliet Whiteman from Burrell Middle School, and Ayali Maldonado from Bayside Academy to share with us how they have been impacted by these programs. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Sachi Sinha, and I'm an 8th grader at Bowditch Middle School. So we've all heard the question, what do you want to do when you grow up? And for many middle school students, the honest answer is, I don't know. That's exactly why it's so important to start exploring careers now, so we have time to discover our strengths, interests, and goals before making big decisions about our futures. This program is so powerful because it doesn't just let us imagine some careers, it lets us try them while creating a safe learning environment to fail and succeed. And when we connect those experiences to real information, like how much that job pays, and we learn how to connect our passions to what our practical needs are. Understanding living wages means that we're not just chasing a dream, we're learning how to turn it into a dream that is is a sustainable reality. Sorry. To the people in the organizations that fund this program, thank you. You're not just supporting a class, you're investing in students' futures that gives us the tools to succeed. My hope is that every student leaves this program with both the inspiration and the plan, knowing that their dreams are possible and knowing that they have the knowledge, confidence, and skills to make them real. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Juliet Whiteman and I'm from Burrell Middle School and I'm in 8th grade. Last year, I had the privilege to take the CCE class or College Career Exploration at Burrell. This class was such a great bridge to get me interested in starting looking at careers. I took many different modules, but some of my favorites were medical imaging, where I learned to read x-rays, nursing, where I did a phlebotomy, culinary arts, where I made scrambled eggs and a panini. I love that one so much that I bought a panini press. And now I make dinner for my family almost every week. I also took forensic science, where I did a blood splatter analysis, a tire truck analysis. My point is, that class helped me so much to find what I was really interested in. Thank you.
Hello, board members, Superintendent Ochoa, teachers, and students. My name is Ailey Maldonado. I am an 8th grader at Bayside Academy. CCE is a class that impacted me in many ways. It made me think about what I want to be when I grow up. I wanted to consider being a nurse or doctor. I enjoyed the fun hands-on activities like making paper rockets. CCE is a class that helps us as students prepare for the future ahead. Thank you for all the people who made this class possible.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. I now invite Principal on Special Assignment Lori Fukumoto to speak on Project Career Map.
I was going to say, boy, is it hard to follow great students. So I'm going to do my very best tonight. All right, here we go. So good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Ochoa, our district staff, and our community. I am so excited to be spending the next few minutes sharing Project Career Map with all of you. This project, as Karina said, is innovative and it's unprecedented. So I have been here for almost 35 years and I've not seen a project like this before. So students are going to be asked to give us their input, and then we're going to follow up and do what they are interested in doing. So that's why it's so different. This is all possible because of our wonderful donors, Gilead Foundation. So we are so thankful for what you're going to be doing for our students. So let's learn about Project Career Map. So over the course of the next 2 years, fifth through eighth grade students will have the opportunity to approach science careers with curiosity. They will reflect on their own skills and interests as they tell about their science career journeys. What makes this project so unique, as I said, is that participation is going to be based on student interest, rather than, for example, entire grade levels going on a field trip or entire classes. Students will choose to explore a particular field and will be able to go to the universities, colleges, industry sites, and natural environments that have been planned around specific interests and careers. So far, we've been planning for visits to UC Berkeley, Kenyatta College, CSM, San Jose State, Stanford, and San Francisco State. Industry and nature exploration visits will include Gilead, Chabot Science and Space Center in Oakland, the Oakland Zoo's Veterinarian Hospital, and a trip based on student feedback. Because we value student input, we are currently surveying students to see where they would like to go on a trip, as well as what their interests are for other science-based learning. So during school breaks in fall, spring, and summer, interested students will have an opportunity to attend a science camp where they will get hands-on experiences related to their interest in a science field. Our middle school students, as they just described, are being offered robust science experiences through college and career explorations, or CCE, and our elementary students will have access to career discovery labs, all giving students additional learning beyond their science curriculum. And all of this is possible because of the Gilead Foundation. For 6th through 8th graders, this project affords students some additional opportunities, such as connecting to professionals based on student interest in particular careers, joining some science clubs, and a district-wide exhibition where students will plan the event with the goal of sharing their love of science and their Project Career Map journeys and with their other students and families across the district. So throughout this entire process, students are not just going to get to go on these trips, they are going to do some work around it too. So there will be some pre and post questionnaires for students to be able to respond. And then there will be a student career map that we're going to ask students to complete at the end of the year. And for us, these responses will be the data that we'll use to evaluate the effectiveness of the program and what we believe is the power of this model of learning. So in summary, Project Career Map is a new strategy for us, designed to open doors for students starting in the 5th grade. So in most cases, it's usually high school or maybe 7th and 8th grade where students get this opportunity, but we're going to be starting in the 5th grade. The enthusiasm around Project Career Map is amazing. Each time I speak with an administrator or a teacher or a community member, they're all so excited when I describe what this program's all about. Recently, I was talking with a Horrell student. So she went to Horrell, but currently Lead. And I shared Project Career Map with her. And when she was in middle school, she said that in an after-school program, she was able to go to one of the colleges. And she said that she wishes that Project Career Map was around when she was in school. I want to just tell you that Jackie is now a doctoral student at Stanford. So we really never know where an experience is going to lead a student. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Project Career Map, there's a QR code. This is the actual grant, and you're able to see it if you'd like to take a little deeper dive into it. And I just wanted to say I'm always looking for a chaperone. So if board members or guests, if you're interested in being a chaperone on any one of these trips, please let me know, and we'd love to have you. Thank you. I'm now pleased to welcome Senior Manager of Public Affairs for Gilead Foundation, Federico Pacheco.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay? Even though there's already a degree of separation between me and the students, it's still hard to follow them. On behalf of the Gilead Foundation, I'm honored to accept the recognition that was provided earlier today and to celebrate the launch of Project Career Map. This initiative reflects our shared belief that every student deserves the opportunity to explore their potential and imagine a future full of possibility. Our $500,000 grant is just the beginning. We're committed to partnering beyond the check, creating meaningful opportunities for students to engage with Gilead Sciences. That means opening our campus to students and connecting them with Gilead colleagues so that they can begin to see themselves in these careers. These students aren't just learners, they're our future leaders. The next generation of scientists, innovators, and change makers is sitting in these classrooms today, in this room here today. So it's our responsibility to help them see what's possible. I've heard a lot of thank yous to the Gilead Foundation and really appreciate that, but in reality, we want to thank you, our educators, our students, and our community partners. You guys are doing the hard work, and we appreciate you all. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to invite the school board up. Come join us up here for a wonderful photo opportunity. We also have an award for the Gilead Foundation. We'll try not to mess it up here. I'll read the inscription of it. It says, for the 2025 San Mateo-Foster City School District Partner of the Year, the Gilead Foundation.
Thank you. We will now move to our proposed consent agenda. Yes, yes, yes. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute.
Are they outside?
from recess. Let's see. We will now move to take any public comment related to non-agenda items. If there's anyone in the audience in person. Joel, can you please check online?
Checking. John's iPhone, are you ready to speak? Like Joe can. Okay, looks like the hand was lowered, so no public comments at this time.
Okay. I'm sorry, was there anyone online for public comment?
No public comments at
Okay,
this time.
thank you. Okay, we'll move to the proposed consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form of, in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be removed and discussed from the consent agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Movement of any recommended consent item is appropriate at this time. At this time, I would like to pull 4A, 4A6. Is there anyone?
I would like to pull items 4A3, 4C5, and 4C6 for discussion.
I'm sorry, you said 4A3?
Yes, 4A3, 4C5,
Okay,
and 4C6.
okay.
It's like when you get those notifications on your phone and you have to like remember all three digits and like repeat it back.
Yes. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the remainder of the agenda, the agenda, and then minus 4A6, 4A3, 4C5, and 4C6?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You want, I'll go first. I would like to bring to the attention on page 6, there are two expenditures here that has no identification of what these payments are for or who they actually belong to. It just indicates a blanket PO for Visa payments, and all of the other items in this document has specific details listed. I would like to request for transparency in these charges that are listed here, and the amounts are $2,005.72 and $38,187.82. And also, these Visa payments, are they a personal reimbursement of a Visa card that belong to an individual, or is it a district-provided Visa card? So if we can get a little more detail on what these payments are, that would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question on that item?
Sure, sure,
So
sure. Yep.
going forward, we're not going to see every single charge, are we? Or how will it work if you want detail on
Well,
Visa cards?
so we're providing what the register is. If there's a question regarding the content of it, that's we can provide the detail for that. I mean, if there's a particular item on here that someone wants the detail for, we can provide that to you, the depth of it. But I mean, for some of these to show you all the detailed information associated with, like I'm scrolling this page, I'm seeing an NPS. We're not going to have all that, all the micro detail, but we can absolutely, for the Visa charges, we can certainly provide that level of detail. Superintendent, you can say something?
So that'll be something like offline separate. I'm just wondering going forward, if we see Visa, are we going to expect to see like every single charge or how detailed are we going to get on these?
Superintendent wants to say something?
Yeah, so we have a variety of departments with Visa credit cards. So this would be the Ed Services Department, the Student Services Department. Patrick, you might know the list. I don't really know the list.
Yeah,
very well.
I used one recently for
Your
taking
department. So it's somewhat of a practice in the district. So I think we would need to come back to the board with your direction on if you would like for us to just simply add it as an attachment, which we're happy to do, or if you would like to just be able to access them and we can share them with you. They're certainly all public documents, and there's, on our part, it isn't any different than the other expenses we have in the district. I think what this item is this is an item detailing a sort of the business end of paying the Visa card. So I would just say that would be something for the board to either consider a separate item, or in the future asking us to bring the item with different type of documentation, which we could look into our preparation for meetings and just make that available, essentially.
Thank you. And even just listing it here, there is a format that is listed on all of the other items, even if it's a reimbursement, it does, even the blanket PO, let's say, for instance, for a field trip, bus transportation, it does have some details on there that we can refer to and understand what, the reimbursements are. So, yeah, we would like more.
Sure. I mean, for the Visa, we can do maybe a summary in there in terms of I recently used mine just as an example. I had a district vehicle. I took it through the car wash the other day for $15. So
right, one example.
That's just an example.
Right, one example is like prior to school, our principals and our maintenance department know that I'm sort of famous for, I drive around to all the schools because I don't want to see any basketball hoops with nets that are torn. I think it just makes kids think you don't care about them. Even though we put 1,000 hours into reworking the school in the summer, a ripped net, in my opinion, signifies like we just kind of left details unattended. So right around August 1st through the 5th, every year I call Patrick and I call various other administrators and say, hey, go grab your credit card and drive to Big 5 and buy basketball nets. And I want to see this fixed by such and such date. And that, on a given year, that might actually be paid for through the business department, or it might be paid for by the facilities department. So it just kind of depends on the year. And I think your suggestion to actually, as board president Brooks pointed out, actually just having the more detail in the description itself, I think works too. So we can start with that, and then also just at any time that the board or the public ask for any detail on any expenses, we can always provide that too.
Just as a protocol question, I guess, what is our internal policy for those credit cards? Are they monitored by the district office in terms of usage? I understand it's probably set, things that you can spend it on, things that you can't spend it on. But is there, I guess, a month-to-month, day-to-day oversight of the specific charges? Because I think from our perspective, I agree with Trustee Proctor. It may not be realistic to review every credit card statement at the board level. At the same time, when we don't have that visibility, it does make us nervous, because when you see those alarming articles come out about public spending or waste, it's usually something like the credit card. It's usually kind of luxuries or other pieces put on the credit card that the board didn't have visibility into. Yeah. And so just so we feel that we're doing our oversight and our diligence, it would be helpful to get that top line. But also if we know the internal protocols and who on staff is responsible for reviewing those statements to make sure nothing in there is egregious or against policy, I think that also helps put the board at ease.
Yeah, so I don't recall exactly what the board policy says. I can look that up because I just don't know off the top of my head, but all those visa statements come through me, and I go through the itemization of things that are on there. And we have conversations with folks. There's very few that are issued, and it's oftentimes for things that you can't use a purchase order for. We might get a call from a site that says we're trying to get X, Y, and Z. Can you help us get that? And we have a district credit card we can use that for. David has periodically some materials that we might need to acquire that we can't use a purchase order for. But all those receipts come through me. Our auditors go through those. They pull those every year and go through those in detail to address exactly what you're talking to Trustee Kim to make sure those expenditures are appropriate. And so, yeah, we do go through that process.
And just a quick question. And I guess what flagged it is the $38,000 payment. I guess my question would be, is this over a period of time? Is this in different departments
right
clustered together, and
yes.
then this is the total for
yes.
all of the cards
That's
that
right.
we're making payments
yes,
to?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
I think the other piece to discuss is how we process reimbursements. So reimbursements work differently in that when employees have to incur costs for a variety of different reasons, those go through a separate reimbursement process that involves providing original receipts and having prior authorization and demonstrating that this purchase has to do with this, like my program that I'm operating, and we don't process those through the credit card, as to my knowledge, and I'm pretty sure you would point that out if we did. And so that's the other part of it, is that the credit card purchases facilitate, as you pointed out, because some vendors are not open to using purchase requisitions, in order to provide products or services that in some cases are needed immediately. And David's shaking his head back there as the guy who buys the math manipulatives so like just an example is like when we need things that we were somewhat slightly unanticipated or just a greater need existed, and we say, oh, we need to order one more set of that product, and then that necessitates a purchase that goes a little bit faster.
Yeah. And the reimbursement forms have information on there as well too, instructions for people that want to be reimbursed, a process to have a discussion with folks before the purchase is made, that they go through a process to talk with folks at their site, also if they want to acquire something. And we try to, for me personally, I try to minimize the out-of-pocket expenditures for people who are trying to do something for the environment for their classroom, that we want to do whatever we can to make sure that they don't have to be out of pocket for those expenses. At the same time, we want to make sure that those, as you're suggesting to Trustee Kim, that those expenditures are appropriate, that folks aren't going out. And I know, over the decades, you hear about different things that people have done, and that's why we have these process places. So there's very few that are issued in the district. And we do review those. The auditors review them too. And they're, like the superintendent's saying too, there's a reimbursement form that's available, and that has information on there too in terms of what steps to go through.
I would just, I think, echo what President Brooks asked for in terms of having slightly more description, but I will say just knowing that all those processes either for approval or for review go through you already kind of alleviates my main concern. So that's just good to know, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to discuss item 4A3, the Zoom licensing renewal. I'm, first want to say I'm very supportive of the use of Zoom, and I know it was really critical, essential during COVID. At the same time, I know a lot of schools and school districts, across the country are really reevaluating how many licenses are actually being used and used efficiently, because they're not, honestly, most schools have gone back to kind of life as normal. And so Zoom's not being used kind of at the same level as the pandemic. I would love to ask, if these licenses are being, I don't want to just blanket say, yes, renew all of them. Can we make sure that they're going to be used or used efficiently before renewing?
We're having those exact same conversations about this process too. We use Zoom for this platform, and there's licenses associated with that. And the director of technology, I've been having a conversation about almost verbatim what you're talking about too. Who's using it? Why? What are the other options? What are the costs of those other options? And can we walk people towards another option? Because there is a cost associated with this. So we're going to have those conversations too with folks too. There are some unique functionality characteristics that Zoom has that some of the other platforms don't have. But my experience, I know there's a couple other platforms, and for what we use it for, the Google option is a good option. It's been evolving as well too, I think, to compete with Zoom. So I think there may be some familiarization process that needs to happen too. So we're having those conversations as well. And you want anything?
Yes, thank you. I would just add, we're currently in negotiations with the vendor to try to get a little bit closer to the total number of licenses we had last year, which was closer to about 150. And we think we're going to make some headway there. My team knows I've been on the let's just use Google for everything team for 5 years. I can't really convince everybody because there is that memory of, there are a lot of tools with Zoom, but it does cost us, 6 figures every year to be able to offer it. So I always kind of lean more towards, let's just use Google because we already pay for it.
Yeah.
And
we've cut it in
kind
half.
of go round and round every year about that.
We've cut it in half from last year to this number.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep working on that part too. I think the familiarization.
Until it goes down to just
to the board meeting. Yeah.
Great, thank you for the clarification.
Can I add something to that point? So I was going to pull this item as well, but I know Trustee Ho had already flagged it as a issue of concern. I think beyond just the Zoom licenses, I know I think 4A4 dealt with hotspots and other materials. This is a question I raised previously, and it's more of a comment at this point, but I am very curious to see how the district tracks utilization management, and especially for something like Zoom licenses. I've been a part of organizations where we might have 500 licenses, and at the end of the year, you realize 200 were dormant. No one logged in. They were assigned to individuals who completely never used that account, but it was still being paid for. And I understand that to a certain degree, things like hotspots, we plan to have extras in case one breaks down, in case of a new hire that requests it. So definitely I'm not saying it needs to be perfectly right-sized, but I do think, to Trustee Ho's point, as our approach towards using Zoom and other similar tools has evolved, it would be great to get some visibility into how the district tracks the usage, tracks the number of seats that we pay for, how many were used. And I think I've applied that to a lot of our technological solutions that we've adopted here at the district, just to know that as we keep re-upping these contracts, we're re-upping them at the right size for seats that we're actively using, as opposed to ones that historically we've renewed, but it turns out, half of these accounts are, whether it's student accounts, for teachers, for administrators, are just dormant and unnecessary.
We did that exact same exercise for the hotspots, and we reduced those by about a third because they were dormant. Exact. Yeah. So we're doing that.
Thank you so much. I also wanted to discuss item 4C5. It's the leading educators contract. I was reading through it and I noticed that the contract only covers literacy instruction in 8 schools. I think for me, the question is, what will those 8 schools be? And, do we have a plan in place to cover the remaining schools? I think a lot of the work that I've been seeing with the Bay Ed Fund, they really value that comprehensive view. And so I think I just kind of wanted to get a little bit of clarity, like, how are we getting 8 out of 22? And, is it really going to provide us a comprehensive view of literacy instruction?
Yes, thank you, Trustee Ho. I think 2 things are unique about this association with leading educators. One is we are at the very beginning part of our next community strategic plan process. So the Bay Ed Fund, in their partnership with the district, has an interest in helping us bring on consultancy services that push our thinking and that get us reflecting on our current practices. But also, we had, I would say, David, maybe 6 months of negotiation with leading educators and with the Bay Ed Fund back and forth, landing on 8 schools. We vacillated somewhere between 4 and 8. for two reasons. One is the contract size. The type of depth of consultancy services we're going to get, it can get very expensive. So if we pushed it to 22 schools or 21 schools, it would be, much closer to $500,000. And that's actually, part of how we negotiated with leading educators. The nice thing about being able to select schools for this initial round of consultancy is that we're able to show a little bit more care to schools who might have a new principal or who might have a really different instructional design that would be difficult to compare. So like, I'll just point out either Fiesta Gardens or College Park would both be an odd sort of view because they are learning in multiple languages at the same time. And then I'll just pass it over to David for any remarks, because David's been, critical along with Aleida and Pam and Kenyatta in doing this work with leading educators, and maybe just talk a little bit more about the idea of how we put it together.
Sure. You also probably noticed that this is a one-year contract, and really what it's focused on is really coming to an understanding of, what's the nature of our language and literacy instructional practices in the district. It's a sampling approach, absolutely, but it's meant to be a year of sort of gathering some data and gathering some knowledge. We're not going to draw any big patterns. We're not going to make any grand statements, certainly one way or another about, but it's really to try to see what's going on in a variety of schools. Two of the schools, of course, are the two schools that are sort of the leading edge of some of this innovative planning, innovative teaching and learning that we're envisioning for the second strategic plan. So that's Beresford and Lead Elementary Schools. And then we're actually currently just now kind of securing the other 5 or 6. Executive Director Bartfield is talking with the principals. We want to go to the staff. And basically it's saying, we're going to ask you to open your school to a series of classroom visits with folks from the outside the district. So just wanting to make sure, folks are comfortable with that, understand what it's for. And so we're going to go through that process and working with leading educators and just kind of getting that thicker view of the state of our district. And then that will inform any decisions later on in subsequent years about what work are we going to do, what work are we going to do with leading educators, because that's another, we want to make sure if it's work we can do ourselves, we'll do that. But if it's work that really needs to be effectively supported by outside eyes, then we want to do that as well.
Great, thank you so much for the clarification. I wanted to move on to the next item unless there's any further comments on that one. Okay, great. Item 4C6, this is approving Parkside Montessori's outdoor ed overnight field trip. So I also want to say, I'm very supportive of the district and how we send all 5th grade students, to attend outdoor education. My own child participated in it last year and really enjoyed the experience. And I didn't grow up in California, but I understand it's a very quintessential California education experience to do something like this. So I guess my question here really isn't with necessarily the 5th grade students, but that we're also covering 4th grade. If we look at other items in the consent agenda, we see, for example, the Coloma Outdoor Discovery School for Brewer Island. Those are 4th graders, yet that was being covered by parent donations. I think for me, what I wanted to point out here is I would like to see some consistency here. It feels weird to be covering 4th graders at one school and not others. And so I think I want to caution that this could open a potential can of worms. If we want to be able to, just like we did with 5th grade, make this kind of blanket available.
So the decision with Parkside, it's really just a question of scale. We have, it's a smaller school, it's a smaller number of students with 4th and 5th. And the history of the program before we moved to district-wide support for all 5th graders going to outdoor ed, which you may or may not know was just a few years ago, was that it was always 4th and 5th graders at Parkside. And so given the arguments about the efficiencies of sending, 25 students in a bus for 50, that kind of thing, we agreed that we would continue to support that 4-5. So it's really based just only in that. We've had this discussion with a number of schools because actually Brewer is a good example where they approached us about doing 4th as well. And we said, no, the program is focused on 5th grade. And this was only an exception based on really kind of the financial considerations of that efficiency point, that it was really not efficient to send so few students in 5th grade from Parkside. So that's why we went with the decision to do 4th and 5th. But I definitely appreciate your point about, we don't want to open up like some question of unfairness. And you'll know that, there are other examples of where the Montessori schools or our language immersion programs get some different considerations that other schools don't because of the kinds of programs they are. And it kind of falls into that decision-making paradigm.
Thank you so much.
Any comments? Yeah. On this item? Oh, we did. We did public comment for this. Oh, no. Yes, any public comment on the consent agenda? In person?
Checking. No public comments at this time.
With that said, if we don't have any other, anything else, yeah. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve 4A, 3, I can't read. 4A3, 4A6, 4C5, 4C6.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we will now move to business finance.
Yes, we have some colleagues with us tonight. It's going to share some information with us on a recent poll that they conduct on our behalf for an upcoming bond measure. We have Jessica Sanchez from EMC and Jared Boygan from Team Civics.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me through this? Okay, perfect. Well, good evening to the board, superintendent, and staff. I will pull up a quick presentation. There we go. Okay, thank you. I'm Jessica Polsky-Sanchez. Pleasure to be here. I will walk you through very quickly a summary of results from the recent survey conducted among likely 2026 voters here in San Mateo-Foster City School District. This was a survey of likely 2026 voters, and the demographics are modeling likely June 2026 voters. We used, in order to obtain 600 interviews with these likely voters, we used mixed mode methodology. So that incorporates not only live telephone interviews, but also online interviews where we reach voters by both text and email. We conducted the interviews in mid-July, July 8th through 15th. As I mentioned, 600 interviews overall, which carries a margin of error of plus or minus 4 percentage points. And in one instance, we'll share a comparison to prior polling conducted here in the district. So what we'll share graphically in a moment, I'm going to summarize for you here and a few key findings. We do see that while voters are generally optimistic about the way things are going in this local area, they're also expressing some anxiety about worsening economic conditions. We do see that the vast majority, 2/3, see at least some need for additional funding for the schools here in the district. When it comes to a potential bond measure, we see that support initially in this poll is right near the 55% threshold that's needed for passage, with 57% of respondents saying they would definitely or probably vote yes if the election were held today. When it comes to the projects that they prioritize for a potential bond measure, we see essential repairs like repairs to roofs and windows, classroom updates for science, technology, engineering, and math, skilled trades, modern learning. These kinds of classroom updates are prioritized. We also see that safety upgrades and affordable housing to attract and retain teachers and staff are also important to many voters. And one thing that comes through from these results is that voters who are also parents of students attending the schools seem to need a little bit more information on the need for additional funding. So we'll share that with you momentarily. So first, as I mentioned, voters here are feeling good about the way things are going locally. We start off the survey with a basic question that is not about education or schools. It is simply, do you think things in your city are generally going in the right direction, or do you think things are pretty seriously off on the wrong track? And it might surprise some people to see that people are feeling pretty good. 74% say right direction, 25% wrong track. So very nice to see a happy, it's pretty, it's hilarious. It's to scale. That said, we can clearly see that despite that optimism about how things are going locally, we can see some economic anxiety coming through here when we say thinking about the future. How do you expect economic conditions to be 6 months from now? So here there's a lot more red. We see 62% saying much worse or somewhat worse, 13% saying they expect conditions to be much worse. And so we only see 16% expecting better conditions, 22% the same. So on this slide, we're sharing what we heard from voters when we asked, when it comes to the schools in the San Mateo-Foster City School District, which oversees preschool through 8th grade schools in your area, do you think that there is a great need for more money, some need for more money, little need, or no need for more money? And what you can see here is that generally most voters do see at least some need for additional funding, 66% total saying a great need or some need. But when we look at those results, when comparing those who have students in the schools to those who don't, what's interesting is that those parents of student districts are less likely to see a need for additional funding. In fact, more than 1 in 4 in our survey say that there's no need for additional funding.
Jessica, can you speak to the 16% and 76% on the slide here? These the parents are 16%.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry. In these, when we look at these subgroups, we also like to look at the size of the subgroup relative to the overall likely June electorate. The portion that is in parentheses there represents the portion of likely June voters. So 16% in our survey are parents of students attending the schools, and that models the likely June electorate. And that amounts to just under 100 interviews. So we feel pretty confident about those results.
Thank you.
Okay, when it comes to a potential bond measure, respondents were presented with this potential measure. We said there may be a measure on the ballot next year that reads as follows. And so you can see this is a measure that is something that could potentially be on a ballot. It's about 75 words, and it mentions improving elementary and middle schools, updating science, technology, engineering, math, and vocational education, classrooms, providing affordable housing to attract and retain quality teachers and staff, replacing leaky roofs and old windows, improving safety and security, and other repairs shall the measure be adopted, providing the bond measure for the district. And you can see here, initially, 57% would definitely or probably vote yes, 43% definitely or probably no. So support in total is above the 55% threshold in this poll, but it is within the margin of error, which is plus or minus 4 percentage points. And when we take a quick look at support by a few demographic subgroups, we can see that female voters are a little more inclined to support than male voters. They're at 61%, male voters at 52%. We do see overwhelming support among voters under 50 years old. And certainly something that we found noteworthy is that those who are voters and parents in this survey are less likely to say they would support the measure than those who are not parents. So maybe a counterintuitive result, and certainly, again, reinforcing this takeaway about how it seems like parents in particular aren't yet aware of the need for the additional funding. A lot of data on this slide, but we wanted to share with you the results when we broke down the various projects that could be funded by a bond measure. So we presented each one as an independent question and asked on a scale from 1 to 7, where 1 is not at all important and 7 is extremely important. How do you consider each of these? And so these were presented to each respondent in a randomized order. But what you can see here is we've stacked them based on how important they are overall to voters. And we're looking particularly at those 5s, 6s, and 7s, all of those meaningful, all of those meaning that the voter considers them important, but the 7s in particular, we consider higher intensity. So if a voter rates that as a 7, they think it's very, very important. So rising to the top of the list, replacing leaky roofs and old windows, restoring shop classes, updating classrooms and labs for STEM. These are top priorities for voters overall when it comes to bond expenditures. And we also see safety upgrades and affordable housing to attract and retain teachers and staff are high priorities for many. And as you move down the list, priorities fall off a little bit in terms of totals, though everything that is presented here on this slide is important to 55% or more. Although we often do look at those intensity numbers as being particularly important. So looking at, if you just look at the 7s and the 6s, we kind of home in on those top 4 projects around essential repairs, classroom updates, career education, classroom updates, safety, and these kinds of projects. So we also presented in the survey a few different message themes where we provided additional information about the benefits of a potential bond measure and the need for a potential bond measure. So there were a series of informational statements, and we asked, again, using a 1 to 7 scale, where 1 means not at all convincing and 7 means very convincing. How would you rate each of these as a reason to support a potential measure? And so we're highlighting the messages that were the most convincing on this slide. Those are the ones that talk about expanding career technical education, which we've heard a lot about this evening. Exciting stuff happening. Safety, making sure students are safe while they're here at school, updating systems like electrical, roofing, fencing, fire alarms, and emergency communication systems. Emphasizing that there will be accountability and oversight of the measure, protecting local funding at a time when education funding is in jeopardy. And then lastly, the recruiting and retaining high quality educators through provision of affordable housing. So one last slide we'll share, and then I'll hand it to Jared. Just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of historical polling and election results. Not all of these are from bond measures, but both parcel taxes and bond measure polling results in the darker blue, election results in the lighter blue. Certainly we have seen support historically in polling and in elections above the 55% level that is needed for passage, but the support in the current poll is just a little bit softer, lower overall than the overall support that has been seen in polling in the past and in past elections. So I want to keep that in mind, and I will hand it to Jared for next steps.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Jared Boygan with Team Civics. It's a pleasure to be back in front of you. I just have the one slide here, and then we'll take questions on the entire presentation. Just on personal notes, nice to be back here. I worked with Ms. Proctor and several of you on the bond in 2020, most recently. And the first measure I ever did here was actually your Measure B parcel tax in 2003. And I don't even think I could grow a beard yet, much less have all this gray in it. So it's nice to be back, and I appreciate it. So this slide basically explains the process of preparing for a potential bond measure. All right, and this is, when we think about a bond measure, we know all the things that are on that yellow column on the far right. Those are instantly the things that jump into our brain. We're gonna have to have yard signs. We're gonna, have to have direct mail. There's gonna be a campaign. We're not gonna have to have phone banks, are we, Jared? Please don't make us do phone banks. And no, we won't do phone banks anymore. Those things are true, and those happen, but they happen at the end of the process. And the district cannot pay for those things. Private fundraising will be needed. Volunteer leadership will be needed. So those are not the things we're really talking about today. What we have found in doing this for as many years as I've been doing this for, your district and many, many districts, hundreds of districts around the state, nearly 400 times, my firm and I, that the 3 steps in the blue arrows, there's 3 phases and milestones that the district can direct, that you can undertake prior to the board making a final decision about being on the ballot, that if we take these 3 milestones seriously, we put ourselves in the best position so that by the time you vote to put something on the ballot, you can feel confident that you're setting that volunteer-led, privately funded campaign committee up for success. And so what Jessica's presented tonight is really the most important part of that first column, the testing, right? A feasibility study. Can we pass a bond in 2026? And the answer to that question is yes, but there definitely are some flags in these polling numbers that suggest we shouldn't take it for granted, and there's probably quite a bit of information to provide to the community, quite a bit of work yet to do. As she noted, our support is at 57 when we need 55. We'd prefer it to be, a bit higher than that. Honestly, that is within the margin of error. We saw that our parents actually are less supportive than our non-parents. That's a good sign in a way because it's easier to talk to your parents than it is to talk to your non-parents. It also is a good sign, I think, that they believe you guys are doing a great job and they don't see necessarily an urgent need. It does suggest a little bit that we probably need to focus a little bit more on some of the school improvement projects, maybe a little bit less. There's been a lot of discussion about teacher and staff housing. And I think that may be confusing some parents about what this is about. Is it really going to help my school site, or is it really for this other project, which I'm sure that they believe is important, but we can tell from the poll they don't feel quite as directly impacted by. That's going to lead us to the second of these 2 blue arrows, which is where we vet the idea. So we know from Jessica's survey that there's feasibility here, but we have to make sure people really understand the potential of this proposal and that they have a chance to ask their questions, and we have a chance to really improve the information that they have, again, before you make a final decision on what to do. So beginning in the fall, I know that there are lots of plans to go out to every school site. You guys have been doing facility master plan updates. That's actually a really nice dovetail with the bond planning. So we're working closely with your team to make sure that as the school site conversations happen, we talk about the bond and we talk about it in a way that's informed by the information we got from Jessica and her survey, so that we really help keep the focus on what the bond will do for school improvement projects. And it's also important to recognize that sometimes the language we use internally for facilities is not the same language that average voters or even parents that they gravitate to. So a lot of what we learned from Jessica's survey is sort of the kinds of things to be talking about. We don't like to point out that our schools might be older in some places and have problems like leaky roofs and inadequate wiring. But the voters actually have to hear that because they have to know that there's a need for this kind of money. So we're going to be working on making sure that they understand the scope of the problem and that that's why we have a solution in front of them. So that process of vetting the proposal, and this is non-advocacy communication. We're not out there telling people they have to support a bond. We cannot do that. The district cannot advocate. However, you can inform and you can answer questions and solicit feedback, and that's what this process will be about. And it will also include the non-parents. So when Jessica talked about the 16% versus 76% of the sample, she's modeling a June primary likely voter sample, right? Which is smaller than a November general election. That's more voters in November than in June. And when you get that electorate smaller, it tends to get a little bit older. It tends to get a little bit more conservative. So 1 in 6 of those voters, 16%, are going to be parents in your schools. That means 5 out of 6 of those June voters are not current parents in your schools. And those folks, luckily, they start actually a little bit more supportive than the parents, but we still can't take them for granted. We're only at 57%. So there's more work to be done informing them. And there's some work for the superintendent probably, and for all of you as ambassadors of the community, so that you understand kind of what the talking points are and how do we get out in the community when you're, at a Rotary Club, at a Chamber of Commerce, at a SMFCSD event, something, talking to people in the right way about what the district is planning, with a focus on those school improvement projects, not really just on the housing component, so that they really understand kind of what's at stake here. And all of that, will be happening. And then the final step in the process before a potential board vote is to build a strong measure. That's when we would make final judgments about the total amount to pursue, the tax rate that we might pursue, what the actual project list looks like in legal form. You guys have been working through the 2020 bond, so you know kind of how that project list works and how it limits your spending authority only to the things that were included in that resolution. We'll have to write another resolution like that. And if you're going to be on the June ballot, we're going to end up bringing that back to you in probably February for a vote, right? It's August now. It's like 6 months of work that we can do before that. We may even have Jessica come back in January or February and do a tracking poll, a second version of this study that you saw tonight, because 57 is close. You're within the margin of error. And so we may have a little bit more confidence about what that number is before you actually pull the trigger and do this in June, because again, we still have a November option. It's not optimal to do it in November because you also have a partial tax renewal that's coming right behind it. So our goal would be ideally to get the bond done in June. And that's why we're working, as quickly as we can. But, looking at these poll results, it's clear that we do have some informational goals that we probably need to meet in the next 6 months before we put this on the ballot for a June election. So that's an overview. And I think Jessica and I are both available for any questions that you have about the polling data or the next steps in the process.
Thank you. Do we have any board questions?
Just quick question about, I think more sorry, I think my question is more about the second step of this, is, I guess, like, who works typically to coordinate these efforts? I just want to understand sort of the division of labor here.
So we have a good working group internally that with Pat and Diego and Amy have been working closely with us. We're going to create, or we actually have been creating a suite of materials. So there's a one-page handout, there's website content. We're working on slides that will go to the school sites, but could be easily adapted for like a Samsita breakfast or something like that. And then all of you should have access to all of these materials as well, so that at any point, if you find yourself going to an event where you feel like, hey, I'd like to have 21 pagers about the potential bond, that's available to you, that you can have them. If you need some sort of a message training, you want to talk to us directly about, hey, I'm running into these kinds of questions, or I'm sort of not sure I know how to talk about this, we're more than happy to do that. It's been coordinated. We have a good working group that meets regularly and, has been kind of preparing to do all that. But it is really important that all of us as district officials and district leaders, we're saying the same kinds of things about the prospective measure, right? If they, hear from a board member at one event and they hear from the superintendent at the other event, it's got to sound more or less consistent about what the priorities are. And I think, again, as we start to elevate really the school improvement projects, people will start to, I think, understand and feel a little bit more of the need and awareness, and we have some time to do all that.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm actually, it's interesting to see the data about the parents. And I'm actually wondering if, all of the improvements that they're seeing on the campuses are, especially like the newer parents that don't know what it was like before. Maybe they're like, it's great. Like, what do we have to do? It's all good, but obviously not everyone knows that we have this, super long list and we could only meet some of the needs in the first round. So I really appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right about that. And that's why we have to sort of take that extra step of explaining there are still needs. It's great that we have all this construction, and these are some of the needs. By starting site by site, we'll be able to say at your site, these are some needs, but even in a more general way, we can do some of that communication where we can say, these are the needs, around the district generally, or for elementary parents at the middle schools, right? So that as they think ahead, yeah, we do have to do that work though.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you both actually for this information. I had a just question. Jared, we worked before and we had a very like tight timeline because we did it very quickly. So in general, like I know you're starting kind of behind the scenes now, but when do we like what can we expect over the next like 10 months? When do we convert to this like no longer district run? Now we're hitting the streets.
Yeah, that's a great question. The deadline, if we're going to be on the June ballot, the deadline is 88 days prior to the June election, which is March 6th. So the board would have to take a formal vote prior to March 6th, and then those election documents have to be submitted on time to the county clerk. And so I think leading up to that time, you do not have to wait for that moment for the volunteers to begin organizing and getting ready, but probably around the first of the year, we would want to start thinking ahead about, okay, who's going to be on this committee, who's going to take a lead in fundraising, how are those pieces going to come together? So if we use this fall in particular to do school site outreach and then some of this other community outreach that we need to be doing, city council members, county supervisor, obviously should be supportive of this. Other community leaders, neighborhood leaders, then by the first of the year, if we start to feel confident and we do a tracking survey that says, yes, we're still on track, we can make this happen, that would be a time for volunteers, I think, to start organizing themselves.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question I had was, do we know or when do we know when there's like our cities are competing with us for also wanting to get bond measures or parcel taxes on the ballot?
I mean, there has been talk, at least in San Mateo, about some potential measures, but I think that's likely to be November of 2026, not June of 2026. So that potentially is another reason for us to continue thinking about, trying to focus about the June election. And look, voters in California are used to long ballots. It is not disqualifying to have two measures on the ballot at the same time because they'll be for different things. Whatever the city is trying to fund is not going to be schools. Whatever you're trying to fund is not going to be streets and parks and public safety and the kinds of things that cities talk about. And voters can tell the difference. They will say, okay, does this agency need it? Do I trust this agency to spend it? Are these things I think are important? Do I think I can afford it? And then they'll go look at the city measure and they'll ask themselves the same sets of questions. So it's okay if there's some overlap, but certainly it's important to make sure that the council members know that you're thinking about doing this, that they're on message about it, that they understand why you need it. They're not just thinking about housing, which benefits them. They're probably excited that you're thinking about the housing component, but they have to understand it's about school improvement also, and that that's needed, and that we really start to get that into their consciousness, and that they also understand, hey, none of us are in competition here, right? You guys do what you have to do. We're going to do what we have to do. We don't want them out there bad mouthing what you're doing, and if they get nervous that you're out there bad mouthing them, then they might, do that the same way, and that only hurts everybody, right? So we don't want to be in that situation.
Okay, thank you.
I just had two questions. One is kind of following up on Trustee Proctor's point. So just to clarify, it sounds like the recommendation now in terms of timing and strategy is to target June, partly to avoid conflict with parcel taxes, but also it just gets more noise as the gubernatorial race picks up leading to November. So I definitely agree with that approach, again, assuming the data as we move forward tracks it. I did have questions on the polling generally. So one thing that stood out to me, so I was curious, since I know you guys work with other districts as well, or historically, how much of what you're seeing in this poll tracks, I guess, what you're seeing in other statewide polls? Because one thing about having non-parents have certain perceptions to me means that they might be looking at it through a statewide or nationalized lens since their own children aren't at the school. So I saw the local funding that's controlled by district being one of the stronger 7 arguments makes sense because they're seeing so much news about all this funding being stripped away. And so I'm just curious to know whether or not what you're seeing is pretty consistent across the board with other similar districts that are considering measures like these, or if you're seeing any type of irregular moves specific in our district.
Yeah, I would say there are other districts that we are working in where we're seeing higher support among parents than non-parents, and there are also some where we see a similar pattern to here. So it really depends on the circumstances, and it very often will depend on the kinds of work that's being done inside the district and what parents are seeing and hearing and things like that. And I would say other interesting things that stand out in this poll are pretty consistent with what we're seeing elsewhere. Like a overall kind of, I would say, voters are being a little more choosy about what they're willing to support these days. And we're also seeing a pattern, at least locally here in the Bay Area, was that what you saw, a high level of optimism about things locally, against a backdrop of concerns about the economy. So I think those are interesting, but also very consistent results for Northern California. Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jessica's point about the optimism and the economic pessimism is interesting. This is a Democratic area, and so what we're seeing, there's a weird crisscross on the partisanship where Democrats are actually more economically pessimistic because of the sort of way that they're interpreting national events. Republicans are they're more optimistic, but of course, Republicans are much more skeptical on school bonds and taxes. And so when you add the economic pessimism to Democrats, and then this generally, even though this is definitely a plurality or majority Democrat district, the Democrats here are fiscally conservative, or this is, you still have to make your case to them, right? These are folks who want to understand that you need the money. They, that it's not like some other parts of the Bay Area where it's just sort of a knee-jerk yes to new taxes, regardless of what they are. These are San Mateo and Foster City voters, want to kind of understand the details a little bit, and they want to understand the need. And so we do have to get out and kind of make that case. And so I think all of that is sort of baked into these numbers.
And I guess if you're looking at the fact that we have a historically low level of support, at least starting off for this measure, is our view that's tied to the economic pessimism? Is it just that the fact that we've passed so many bond measures and parcel taxes in recent years have created a fatigue in the voters? What's our kind of theory of the case moving into it?
My theory is that voters are, when I say they're being a little more picky, they really want to understand how the funding is going to be beneficial. So they're sort of withholding support a little more and saying, I want to see results. We're seeing that in all kinds of polling and all kinds of measures. And so I think that's at play here and elsewhere. They want to make sure they're putting their money into something that is going to produce results. So that's really, really important for them to understand this is going to get them something that they want.
Yeah, and I would say that I wouldn't consider the voter fatigue as, in fact, kind of the opposite. I actually feel like your strong relationship with your community, parents and non-parents alike, is a real benefit. You're starting from a strong foundation. People think these are excellent schools. That's the perception of them. They don't seem to have concerns about the fiscal management. They think you're fine. It's more, I think, these bigger issues that create some concern for us. And in fact, if anything, in some ways with the parent community might be a little bit of a victim of your success, and we have some extra work to do there, as you pointed out earlier. But I would think that these are more global issues. And again, we have the ability to, overcome them, I think, with good information outreach over the next 6 months.
Great, thank you.
All right, do we have any in-person comment or questions related to this agenda item? Joe, can you please check online?
Yes, checking. I don't see any public comments at this time.
All right.
I guess maybe I do.
Oh.
I guess I just have a question. Oh, I have to go for that. I'm sorry, Frank, what? I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't see a card.
We don't need that.
I'm like, it's my first meeting.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
we don't need, yeah,
need that.
no,
We don't need
no,
that.
no. mm-mm.
Okay. Just go.
This is related to an agenda item, so you're fine. You
Okay.
can just, yeah.
I guess and I have to stand up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Thank you for.
Okay, well, my name's Markeisha. I am a parent at Parkside Montessori, and as I sit on school site council and other odd things in the district. My question is, I guess with the parcel, is this the parcel tax? I just wanted to know what we're talking about and if parents even know that, like with the surveys, like the bond and the parcel tax, are they the same or they are the same? That's.
Oh, sorry, I'm happy to jump in, but this was a bond measure that we tested in this fall. The bond measure was being considered And so the ballot question that was presented, asked about a bond measure and it laid out details. Although we are aware that sometimes those two things are confused, they pay for typically different things, but the bond measure going to infrastructure projects, parcel tax going into general fund. So this is a bond measure.
Oh, it's the bond, okay. All right, well, that clarifies it, because I guess then I was gonna lean in, maybe this is for the next election or something, but when I spoke to some parents at another meeting regarding, there was a question on the survey about the parcel tax. And I think unless you're a homeowner, some parents didn't know what the parcel tax was, so you don't know what you're voting for. And, or you don't know, perhaps if they're renting, if that is being discouraged by their landlords, like who wants their property tax raised. So that's why I was just wondering how, with the sample of the parents of the 600, I was gonna ask how many were homeowners and if they clearly understood what they're voting for.
I mean, that's a great question. And we do have, this was an executive summary of results. One of the questions that we didn't share tonight, but that we do have is a open-ended question that we asked in the poll after we asked if they would support or oppose the measure, about why they would support or oppose. So we can certainly take a look at some of the responses and see if there's anything in there indicating kind of confusion around what it would take for or need for additional information. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, can you please check online to see if there are any questions or comments related to this agenda item?
Yes.
Oh, I already went. Did we already?
No public comments on Zoom at this time.
Okay, thank you. With that, we're going to take a 5-minute, please, recess. All right, welcome back. We will move to Education Services.
Okay, good evening, Superintendent and Board of Trustees. It's that time of year we have the opportunity to come back to you and share a little information for you about the professional development work that has occurred over this summer, 2025. So give me a second here and I will share my screen with you. All right. Just to provide a little bit of context before going into the specific activities, recall that, of course, we're going into our 4th year of our strategic plan, and we heavily invested in professional development for all our staff in the first few years and the key strategies and programs. So in these last 2 summers, the emphasis has really been on bringing our new staff, new teachers into the priorities that we have as a district, and also offering, optional opportunities to returning teachers if they want to go deep and, back around with, for example, our benchmark, our ELA curriculum in elementary school, and that kind of thing. So, but the emphasis has really been on the work that we've been doing with our new certificated staff. So we're focusing this presentation on the week before school started, which was August 4th through the 8th. And that week began with our district orientation, where we had, of course, actually a smaller number of new teachers or new certificated staff than historically. And some of that is, that actually is great news. We've had a lot of stability, and that has meant that that new group is a little bit smaller than it has been historically. But you can just see there some of the items of the things that we did with them at the morning orientation on August 4th. And then we sort of paired that with the next day in the afternoon, they had an orientation at their site. If they were a teacher, they went obviously to their schools. If they were certificated staff in other capacities, they would work with their supervisor. So again, it was almost a full day of folks just kind of getting oriented to our strategic plan and to the site priorities. And then that same day, we also, as you know, we've been for the last many years, we've been focused on the work around our English learners. And so we did just a very brief introduction to the strategies and priorities that we have for our multilingual students, and particularly our instructional ELD signature strategies. Again, remember that we have these systems and infrastructure in place, teachers on special assignment, the PD days during the school year, a lot of staff already well-grounded. And so new folks to our district have multiple ways that they're being brought up and supported with the priorities that we have, the professional learning priorities that we have as a district. I would add that these sessions, the tone is very positive, and actually it's remarkable each year how the new staff that we're seeing are not often, for example, new teachers. They're actually veteran teachers, but now they're coming to our district. They're new to us, but they're not new to the field. And that really means they're walking in with a good deal of experience and readiness to provide instruction to our students. Multilingual services team, of course, they touch a lot of different pieces of work across the district, and this is just a list of some of the additional things that they did. We're building out the Spanish immersion program, and particularly this was at Abbott, helping our ELD teachers with our Savas curriculum, which we adopted last year. We are continuing with Summit K-12, but actually shifting the focus of the actual work to our schools that are funded by Title I and also our community schools. So the informed K-12 academic intervention is going to be embedded in the after-school programs at those schools. So we had to train those like Boys and Girls Club folks in how to support students to use that online curriculum. And then, related to some of the shifts that are happening with Fiesta Gardens and the impact of that on Abbott, there's a new Spanish language art and arts course at Abbott, which is really, very exciting, and it's going to give students who already bring a lot of Spanish skills to their learning, and that's a new curriculum. So we did some training with the staff, the teachers around that. And then a big part of our 4 days was working with all of our teachers around the safety care work. Of course, you all are familiar with the importance of that training and the work that the expertise that it provides our staff to work intensively with students who may have other social emotional challenges in school. So really making sure that we're bringing a positive, supportive, real humane staff to support those students. So this is a regular certification and then recertification that needs to happen. So obviously taking advantage of the August days was very important. We either certified or recertified. You can see there upwards of 72 folks. We also rolling out, imagine that Dr. Rubalcaba and Director Heredia will be coming back to you with more information about the Wayfinder curriculum new curriculum we're implementing. It's a social emotional learning curriculum we're implementing at the middle schools. This was really a trainer of trainers training, if that makes sense, in that we're embedding folks at sites who have been trained, who can then train their staff in how to implement the curriculum. It's very much sort of intuitive. It's not overly complicated, but these 18 folks will kind of spread out at the start of this year and train others in how to use the curriculum. And then the middle school work is really continuing and kind of deepening around building instructional leadership teams. Of course, the complexities of working with folks who are single subject credential and specialize in one subject area, this idea of building instructional leadership teams that set priorities for the school. That'll set the PD work that's happening. We're kind of making a transition at the middle school level where for the last several years, there have been more gatherings and trainings, whereas now it's going to be much more site-based rather than convenings. The work is going to happen based on site priorities. You can see these are all members of the 24 participants are all members of their ILTs at their middle schools. And then a variety of elementary teacher professional learning opportunities. I mentioned there were a couple opportunities to kind of either introduce new teachers or refresh returning teachers in our benchmark curriculum. You may recall that we are implementing an additional sort of supplementary history social studies curriculum at the elementary level. That's TCI. And so this was an introduction to that curriculum for any teachers who were interested, and particularly for our new teachers. And both of those together had a total of about 80 participants. And then recall that we are launching a pilot process this year in elementary mathematics. So we brought together the pilot teachers from across our elementary schools, at 35 folks, to begin the thinking about. Now this was InnovaMath is one of the curriculum that was selected to be piloted. There will be a second curriculum and PD to support teachers as they implement those pilots. And you can see some makeup information. And then again, the Amplified Desmos curriculum that's being piloted, there'll be a PD opportunity on that on November 4th. So that, of course, we want to make sure that those folks who are going to make final recommendations about the elementary curriculum we adopt, we're trying to make sure that they're, well prepared and supported to implement those pilots. And that's essentially it. It was a busy week. As I said, very positive, kind of upbeat vibe to the week. I'm happy to answer any questions and engage in discussion with you.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation. I want to just mention, well, first of all, this entire presentation is amazing that we are implementing these pilots. I'm particularly happy about the financial literacy that we're going to be integrating into our curriculum. That's very important. Thank you so much. Are there any board members who would like to make any comment or have any questions?
I had a question about the Abbott Spanish language arts curriculum. So can you kind of describe to me how the leveling of this, or I guess the leveling of the language arts course compared to what it was in previous years for those rising from Fiesta Gardens, since we have the Fiesta Gardens campus that's expanding to middle school, I guess I'm just trying to understand, what is the target audience for this language arts course?
Yeah. Well, on one hand, it definitely is targeted at those Fiesta students who chose not to do the middle school, the immersion experience at Fiesta in 6th, 7th, and 8th, but had an interest in keeping going in, the advanced Spanish language learning that they're doing. So it's definitely that group, but it's also meant actually to start bringing in students who may not have gone to Fiesta, but family circumstances or other background actually have a fair amount of Spanish competency. And so to give them an opportunity to go even deeper with their language learnings. I think we are envisioning there, a sequence of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, an elective that students can pass through that would make them still, we could qualify them for sort of the state assessments around proficiency in Spanish and things like that.
Okay, and do we have a sense of, I guess, if this is new for this year, how many students approximately are enrolled in this program for 6th grade, for example?
Yeah, I don't have that number offhand, but I'd be happy to come back to you with it.
Yeah, just be curious to see, compared to previous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Historical. Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Any in person? Joe, can you please check online to see if there are any comments regarding
Yes.
this item?
Checking. No public comments on Zoom at this time.
All right, thank you. We will move to 7A, Superintendent Services.
I think we have.
She's in the webinar. We just called her up.
Joe, we have the principal of Mead Elementary School online if you want to bring her on as a panelist, and then she can take us through the work over the last 2 years.
All right, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So yeah, I want to talk you through a little bit of a journey. Diego, if you wouldn't mind, you have this slide deck unless you wanted me to pull it up.
Plug into the Zoom if you need to.
Okay, while we're waiting for him to pull it up, yeah, this journey actually, it started before I even got to lead itself. Here we go. Thank you. So just a little background on the name. Originally, of course, we were Horal, and then we moved to lead, and then we're hoping for a change. So for me, I've been in San Mateo for over 22 years living in this district, and I did not hear of the name lead until I got to work in the San Mateo-Foster City School District 3 years ago. I hadn't heard of the name before. And so when I first heard about it, I'm like, lead, what is this school? And then, of course, I discovered that it was Horal, and I thought, oh yeah, Horal, I've heard of Horal, that I had heard of, but I hadn't heard of lead. And the conversations around the name started right when I got there. And I had conversations with teachers about the name. And I'll talk a little bit about that again in just a minute. Next slide, please. Thank you. So again, started out as Horal Elementary, named after a former superintendent, and then switched to lead many years ago. And my understanding around the name change from Horal to lead was that it was an executive decision made by the principal at the time. Teacher input was not taken into account. Parents weren't surveyed. It was just, we were going to be lead because at that time, we were an art sort of magnet school, literature, engineering, arts, and design school. But as you know, we are no longer that school. And so the name lead is a little bit confusing. Is it all caps? Is it just a capital at the beginning? It's a little bit of a confusing name. And now, of course, if you look at just those three pictures, we are completely different than who we were even a few years ago when I started. The school physically has gone through a remarkable transformation. It is a beautiful place to be with our new NPR and our new turf fields. Classrooms have new flooring, the layout, the design, fences were taken down within the school. It is a different space when you walk into that campus. It really feels light and open and airy and bright. Of course, there's always things to be done, but physically, it is just a wonderful place to be. Next slide, please. Right. So why do we want to become Cottage Grove? So for us, when I talk to teachers and staff and students even, we want a name that truly belongs to all of us in the community. That name, lead, it doesn't really fully capture the richness and the diversity and the experiences in the community. For those of you who don't know, Cottage Grove is actually the name of the part of San Mateo where you're in. So just like Sunnybray School is in Sunnybray and San Mateo, right? Beresford is in the Beresford neighborhood. Baywood is in Baywood. Lead didn't really capture who we are in the neighborhood of Cottage Grove. We're a really rich and diverse community, and we like to do things together. The other thing that is really, I think, telling about the name is that there wasn't a huge amount of say in it from students and families. There wasn't a buy-in. So when we started this process, the first year it was kind of just talking it through with teachers, but last year in earnest, we really began that work of wanting to hear every single voice. What were the thoughts around different names? And we toyed with different names. We are located on Ocean View Avenue, so there was conversations around, could it be Ocean View? Could we go back to Horal? That was also a conversation. There wasn't much, folks weren't really interested in doing that, but we did put it out there. But it was a process that has taken time. It took conversations. It took principal chats, surveys, and trying to get the information out in more than one way. I think it's important that we did like a digital survey, but we also did a different kind of survey, which you'll see here in a second. Next slide, please. So for those of you who know, we've gone through a tremendous transformation, I think, in the past few years. We really are a different school than we were. We need a name that really sort of reflects who we are and where we're going. We are a school now that our community school, and that is a big deal. We are providing a lot of enrichment opportunities for our students after school. We are providing parent education. We also now feel really grateful that we have this opportunity to really pilot project-based learning and create this space for our learners. It's all part of a sort of rebranding of who we are and how we want the community to see us. Next slide, please. So I think it's really important to know that we did lots of community feedbacks on this. We met in site council. We met in our community school steering committee. We talked about it in ELAC meetings. We talked about it in principal chats. Any venue that we had, we started listening to voices and hearing what folks had to say about the name. And I think one of the first real conversations we had about it was actually in a community school steering committee, where I was listening to parents about the name and teachers talking about how they felt around the name. So community feedback was really important on this. Next slide, please. We worked together with this. This was a combination of teachers with a voice, but staff, parents, students, everybody sharing ideas. Again, I think the reason I feel so strongly about this is that this is a true collaborative effort. Now, having said that, there are some folks who, really remain committed to LEAD, and we heard those voices, and we listened to them and shared feedback with them. It's important to acknowledge that there are some folks who love that name LEAD. There's some nostalgia for them there because maybe they were, their younger children started at LEAD or whatever the case may be. And so I want to acknowledge that some folks feel strongly about the name, but overall, the collective community really feel like a name change is something that we really want to do going forward. Next slide, please. So how did we do these surveys? We asked folks a couple questions. Did we want to keep the original owl mascot? Did we want to have a new mascot? We did a digital survey, a Google form, but we also realized that our youngest learners, like our kindergartners, a Google form was not going to be an appropriate way for us to do that. So I think it's important that I show you the next two slides in succession so you can understand why paper surveys are going to change the results a little bit. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see the results of the survey. And this was the Google Form survey. So right here, it's 51.8% wanted Cottage Grove and 48.4% wanted to stay LEAD. And then you can see there, in terms of a new mascot, folks who wanted a new mascot, the new mascot actually that they are choosing is Cubs. That's the one that everybody seemed to really want to do, the Cubs. But if you look at the next slide, the data that's not reflected in those Google Forms are these surveys, which are equally important. These are our youngest learners. These are our kindergartners voting on whether they wanted to stay the LEAD Owls or if they wanted to be Cottage Grove and which mascot was really important to them. And you can see them there writing with their little, either they wrote their names or they did little tally marks. We were teaching them how to do tally marks. So this is just one sampling of two of our kindergarten classes from last year, voting on what they wanted. And their voices are important too. This is their school as well. So we took input from outgoing fifth graders who the name change wouldn't affect, but we're taking this input from our smallest, littlest learners as well. Like, what is it that you feel strongly about? And so we put all that data together to really get a consensus of, yes, the community is for Cottage Grove, and yes, they are for a new mascot, the Cubs, which I think really reflects who we are too. If you look at the next slide, we've done a little bit of work around that. We talked about the owl, if we kept the owl, what it would look like if we were the Cottage Grove Cardinals. That bear in the bottom corner is sort of the most, I think, accurate mock-up of what we were kind of heading towards. The kids really like that friendly kind of scrappy bear who's ready for action and excitement. But we presented the community with lots of options so they could see what some possibilities were. Next slide, please. So this new identity, I think it's important for our school. We've come a long way. I've said that before. Physically, test scores are rising, ratings are rising. We are not who we were just a few years ago. We are a place where kids want to come to school. Teachers are excited to be there. We are really transforming our community. Not only are we a community school, which I think is really important, but we also really now are embracing PBL in a way that I think is really exciting. Some of the board have already experienced some of the things we're doing around project-based learning, and you can see how our teachers are really embracing it. the kids are loving project-based learning. We're only 3 weeks into school, and it is already the part of the day they are looking forward to. It's just a completely new way for them to learn. And the ownership that they feel around this learning is so important. So I just make sure we really highlight the fact that, a new identity, we're moving in a new direction with some of our educational practices. They go really well together. Next slide, please. So these are some of the things that we're working on too going forward are these who we think we are. Cottage Grove cares for itself, we care for others, and we care for the environment. The name reflects our shared story this time and the future we are building together. And I want to emphasize the together. All the work we have done could not have been done without the support of the district, support of parents, teachers. All of us together are making this shift on who we are. Cottage stands for who we are, what we value, and the promise that every voice matters. And that's kind of who we are and why we feel so strongly about this name. And I really hope the board will consider this as not just good for our school community, but for the district itself. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Delahunt. This was really cute. I really love the options. I love the bear. I'm voting for the bear. Do we have any board questions at this time?
Yeah, I actually had a question about I don't know if this is a question for Principal Delahunt or more for Superintendent Ochoa, but this isn't a voting item. So what is, what are the next steps, I guess, in this process?
So I think part of the idea of bringing this to the board is we really want to demonstrate a real interest in community input and community access. I trust Natalie and her team at the school implicitly, and I think having met with her and discussed this all the way through, they've done a really wonderful job. But, changing the name of a school is a big thing. So we felt like tonight's presentation would certainly serve as a way to announce to people in our larger community that this name change is being requested and is being considered. And then we would bring this back to the board at a future board meeting. September is an option. I might lean more towards October because it would just give more time to be able to meet with the community a second time, pull more information for the board, and then at that time, get a really strong written proposal from the school and then for the board as part of a resolution, because it does require some work on the back end in terms of actually changing the name. And then that would become, you could say, permanent either at the October meeting or at a future meeting, depending on board direction.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a question, but just a comment. First, Principal Delahunt, thank you so much for the presentation. I think all of us, we've all seen the transformation of Lead, soon to be Cottage Grove, and we've just been so excited about the progress. And it's like a transformation both physical on the outside and also on the inside. And I just wanted to say that the little tally marks for the kindergartners and their little votes, that just slayed me. That was just the best thing I've seen all night.
What did you say? It slayed me. Oh. Oh, that's what you said.
I just had one, I guess, question or comment. Do we have any policy or procedures for name changes of schools? And I don't know, do our middle school names different than our elementary school names? I don't know if they're like human people or.
We do have the policy. We attached it to the item for tonight. And, it's sort of generic. It's probably in effect in like 99% of school districts in California. So it's not necessarily super specific to San Mateo-Foster City School District, but, it has the very explicit language about like why and how you would name a school. In this case, it falls under the sort of the geographic area, the sort of the neighborhood name, I guess you could call it, like Beresford, as Natalie pointed out. And then in this case, the Cottage Grove neighborhood or community that does have some historic relevance in the area.
I don't see the policy attached, but I also, maybe I'm missing it. Oh, late. Oh, in a different agenda item.
It's in a different agenda item. Oh,
Okay.
wow. Okay.
All right, well then I'll just
Oh,
do
in
one
our
more.
board agenda. Okay, gotcha. But we can attach it to this item too. If we can just do that after the fact, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I don't have I love this, and I think this is a cute name, cute logo. I like the process. I'll do my homework and I'll read the board policy on this one, but just wanted to make sure that since she mentioned that how the name was changed previously without a lot of input, just want to make sure that we have some structure around how this goes in the future for other schools who may also be interested.
And actually, she did point out, obviously, as the principal of Lead, she's going to hear that backstory, but there are numerous schools in the district that have changed the mascot in very similar ways. Like a new leader comes on and says, that's not a very good mascot. Let's change it to something else. So right now, we have a lot of duplication, actually, which is sort of unusual for a school district, but we have right now 3 schools that are the Owls. And so, just things like that. So yeah, just quite a bit, but only 1 leopard shark, and that's the newest school. Very little chance of that being repeated.
I'm glad we brought up the board renaming policy because I do have comments on that when it comes up later in the agenda. I do want to thank Principal Delahunt for this for the presentation, and I think actually one of the first conversations we ever had at LEAD was specifically about how that name didn't really fit anymore, and especially with your experiences there and how much that site has transformed. It's really great to see this process. I echo what the superintendent said. One thing that I've heard consistently from parents at that site is just how much trust they have in the principal and the leadership and a lot of changes that are happening. And so trust that the principal has a good pulse on where the sentiment is in terms of buying community support. Really appreciate kind of showing the work in terms of how we've managed to actively engage everyone from the students in the classrooms to parents. I did have a few questions, and some of these might be premature. These might be more related to when this item comes up for a board vote, but I imagine these are items that will come up. And so for the survey findings themselves, when I see stats like these, I'm always curious to see what the participation percentage was, whether this is reflecting, say, 10% of folks who actually responded or 90% of folks that responded. And I think a second question that I've heard before, because I don't believe LEAD is the only school that's explored name changes, and one of the comments I have later is about some of the other schools that raised that conversation, is specifically around whether or not the district or the site has any estimate about any cost impact to the district to go through these changes. Some of them are going to be very marginal, minor things like updating a sign. But I wasn't sure if we had that figure available because I imagine that is something that folks in the public will be curious about. If it ends up being a much bigger number than things people might expect, it might change folks' opinion about taking this direction. I just want to reiterate, though, I am supportive of the name change. I am supportive of this direction. I know that this process has been done in a way that was very intentional and inclusive and thoughtful, but I do think it's helpful to have that information at our fingertips before we take the final vote, whether it's next month or the following meeting.
Thank you. Are there any in-person comment or question? Joel, can you please check online?
Yes, President Brooks. I don't see any Zoom public comments at this time.
All right, thank you. We'll move to 7B. Is that workforce housing survey results? Who's that? Is that Amy?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll just do this one. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Ochoa, members of the public. Diego Perez, Director of Communications, San Mateo-Foster City School District, here to present you all the workforce housing survey results. As we scroll down into the document, we did put very front and center kind of like the overarching themes that we had as it relates to what we saw from the current data set. And as we scroll down to the next slide, we'll be able to see that very clearly. 96% agree that the cost of housing was a barrier in attracting and retaining qualified staff. We do have affordability as being a top priority, with 95% rating it as very important. And then also in terms of the data set, we did have an overwhelming of 610 folks that did the survey, but from those we cut it down to specifically look at the renters that are classified and certificated, which we had 73% of certificated employees saying that they're in favor, as well as 84% of classified employees expressing their interest in looking for housing solutions. And of course, as it relates to the introduction of the methodology, we did, of course, send out a survey to every single staff. We used all the emails relating from what our Human Resources Department has, as well as technology. We sent that over to our surveying partners, and they sent that out. But in addition to that, we did also have flyers in the staff lounge for folks that may not have had access to that specific email when it was sent out, though there were reminders. We had QR codes available at staff lounges for them to be able to access it as well. As we continue down the survey, we did see, of course, as I mentioned, the 84% of classified staff interested and 73% of certificated interested. But one of the really nice things to kind of highlight here is the factors that influence housing choices, which in this case, affordability and proximity to work were the highest rating, out of 5 being strongly agree that they're very important and influence housing factors when they go about their renting, of course. And from there, we can look into the current housing satisfaction. In this particular question, the satisfaction was asked that if 1 was very satisfied and 5 was very dissatisfied. So currently we do have a median of 3.1 and a 3.2, 3.2 being our classified staff and 3.1 being certificated staff. In that same sense, we do have some data, of course, as it relates to commuting distance. We do have some staff commuting from some areas, of course. We did list some cities that are over 21 miles just to give a sense of the distance and how many folks are traveling to get to work. And at the same time, the commute times are shown there that highlight approximately, we would say 10% are doing 31 to 45 minutes in commuting for our classified. And then we do have 35 to 45 minutes of commute time for our certificated at 36%. Just some data sets here to highlight. And of course, the cost of housing being a barrier, with 5 being strongly agreed. Both renters and certificate and classified, of course, know that that is a cost of a barrier to entry, of course, when it comes to navigating the housing rising costs. And then the concern of affording rent, we do have our 3.4 and 3.7, similar in the sense that they are in the higher ranges of being concerned in terms of being able to pay for rent in this area. And then again, re-highlighting that the 96%, that 96% is actually inclusive of everyone as it relates to just management, certificated, and classified staff that took the survey, noting that there is a common sense of, or a common sentiment that we do know that housing right now currently is a barrier for folks in navigating the changing rates of how much we pay rent monthly, of course. And then the respondent demographics, as mentioned, we did have about 608 respondents to the entire survey. But from there, we did get a niche perspective of our renters being certificated and classified. The really nice thing about this data set is we kind of do categorize how the age rates are regarding our certificated and classified staff. So in terms of the age range down at the bottom, we do have our classified staff being within the 45 to 54 age range, and also within our teachers, as kind of David Chambliss alluded to earlier, that we have hired less now, but we do have majority of those being 25 to 34 years of age, which are younger teachers currently noting that they are about in favor or are looking to have better opportunities when it comes to housing here in the San Mateo County. And then going up a bit, we do have within the areas of how long they've been working here, between 1 to 5 years. I know we have had a push of hiring new staff recently, and those are the folks that are currently seeking the support as it relates to this data set. So in conclusion, affordability has emerged as the most significant factor influencing interest in workforce housing, with 95% of respondents rating it as very important. Of course, as we continue with this project and communicating with the Workforce Housing Leadership Subcommittee, we want to continue to see maybe if there's a potential to resurvey staff as it relates to the work that we're doing with the facilities master plan and the bond. So that way it does go hand in hand, and then there's no kind of turbulence as it relates to voters, maybe not looking at housing as one of the highest needs, but knowing that it's still a need that we have here in the district to make sure that we do have our quality educators and staff living where they serve. And I'll turn it over to the board for some questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any board questions or comments?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I really enjoyed the data on slide 7. For me, it was really eye-opening to see how you broke it down by age group and to learn, just kind of the average age of classified and certificated staff renters. I was really, I think for me, the visual of especially our classified staff, and how much closer they are to retirement, than our certificated staff. I think I look at all of this and it's like, okay, I want to be Oprah and be like, you get a home, everybody gets a home, right? But I think for me, just looking at that data, I want all of our employees, but especially because I'm seeing it so much more clearly with our classified staff, people to be able to retire from our district with dignity. And so I just wanted to kind of ask, when one day when we get to, it's going to be limited housing, right? We're not Oprah. And so I wanted to know, what role does age play? Interest, another one of your demographics. How do those factors, will they play in kind of that ultimate determination of who does receive housing?
I wouldn't say that would be in play in terms of who receives housing, rather it's just important to note the different demographics that currently are seeking that support. Of course, we are still in conversation with the Workforce Leadership Subcommittee as to how we are going to navigate what an application may look like. We did visit Jefferson Union High School District. They did give us some tips and tricks on how they've navigated those forms. Though we haven't seen one formally, we are still in the feasibility studies to see how many units we can house, which was recently shared at the last Workforce Housing Leadership Subcommittee. And communication will go out tomorrow for the community to see the feasibility studies as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have just a general question. Do we have data on how many employees we've actually lost due to not being able to afford to live here? Because I think not only for this, but in the other topic that we talked about with the bond measure, I wonder, just pulling some data on that. I don't know if we have it.
We have it historically. We do it during our exit survey process. We get better numbers on the certificated side because the resignations come almost always at the same time of year. But it was in the 80% range each of the last 3 years. For the reason why I'm choosing to leave this job is the cost of housing was showing up 80% of the time. So it's a really big factor. I think this current year is a bit of an anomaly because we had so much continuity. So many fewer people chose to leave. But when we conducted our stay survey, many of them cited the possibility of workforce housing.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Joe, can you please check online to see if there are any comments?
Yes. No comments on Zoom at this time.
All right. Thank you. All right, we will move to 7C.
Thank you, President Brooks. Tonight's item is a first review of proposed board policy and administrative regulation updates. Approximately 6 months ago, I assigned 2 of our administrators, Diego Perez and John Cosmos, a task of coordinating together to pull board policy updates that were recommended through the California School Board Association. As members of the California School Board Association, we have access to their bank of proposed and recommended school board policies. And those policies are available for school boards throughout the state to consider making updates and changes to board policies. So what the board and the community are taking a look at tonight are a litany of redlined board policies, which is showing you what the current board policy says with the actual proposed change in red. And then in some cases, new board policies where in We didn't have a previous board policy covering that topic, and some of those are notated in that way. And part of the board policy review recommendation that we make is for the board and the public to be able to access these proposed changes and then ultimately take a good month to look through them and give comments. We're going to post on the district's webpage a link for members of the public to log on from wherever they like and make remarks, ask questions, suggest changes to the board policy updates that we have recommended. And then we'll bring those back to the school board. This is a lot to review in 4 days and then have comments on. So I definitely want to, in just a minute, pass it back to the board for any questions or comments. But also I want to suggest that we take the full month to do that. And then our administrative team will make those updates and bring it back to the September meeting for a second review and potential approval if the board feels that we're ready to do so. Then we give ourselves a few months off and then we restart in December. So we basically would do it 3 times a year and follow that 60-day timeline. And then always with transparency in the community, access to the red line versions. And then once they're approved, we do need a month to go in and actually take down the old board policies, send copies of the new ones to every school, and make sure that all of our documentation online is updated. And with that, I'll pass it back to the board for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Thank you so much for the explanation and the timeline. I did look at all of these. I was like, I don't know if I have enough time to do this as thoroughly as I would like. So that makes me feel really good. The one that did catch my attention was AR 5145.7. I was noticing, so I think part of it I was a little bit confused at the end on page 4. The red line parts weren't actually red. They were actually black, but they were they had the strike through. But I guess for me, what beyond the red black coloring thingy, but I wanted to ask, you know, I was concerned about where the lines about confidentiality were lined through. And I kind of just wanted to understand a little bit what the reasoning was behind taking it out. Generally in these cases, I feel that confidentiality, especially for the victim, should, you know, and I can imagine in circumstances where, you know, confidentiality can't be fully kept. And for expediency reasons, you know, as I was reading in this, you know, sometimes it's harder to keep it confidential, but I really feel just for the privacy of the victim, that would be something that I would want to understand a little bit better of why that was being struck out. Oh yeah, this is for AR 5145.7 with the redlined parentheses afterwards.
Definitely, thank you for pointing that out, Trustee Ho. We'll do 2 things in this case. So Diego, if you can notate this for our follow-up with our legal counsel, is address the issue of the, in this case, it's not a red line, so we have to address that issue, why this error is in there. But the second thing is determine where in the policy confidentiality is addressed. And why the recommendation is, or I don't want to rule out that it is a clerical error, so I want to be able to come back to the board with that one. And then in cases where substantive, meaningful questions like this arise, we might actually choose to bring this back in a subsequent batch just to give ourselves even more time to confirm the accuracy and the completeness of the document itself.
I think it does say that the report shall be confidential, but yeah, it's a little bit less detailed that way, but thank you.
Right, anyone else?
Unsurprisingly, I do have some comments on this section. So I definitely understand this is initial draft. I'm not going to go through every single version out here in the purpose of the meeting. A few things I did want to call out though. So I think one example of this is in 5145.7. And again, I think we have several attorneys, unfortunately, up here who have done a lot of red lines. One thing that happens with those, if you look at the line that says superintendent or designee shall, and then it goes into a capitalized sentence, those types of formatting errors I would just flag. I think also one thing I noticed is several of these related to sexual harassment policies, but one of them, if I can pull it up, was different from the others. So I don't know to what extent we're trying to be consistent across the board, but several of the sexual harassment policies were changed and the language was altered to specify that they only apply to other persons with an employment relationship with the district. But one of them kept the original language of other persons on district property, which has a very different meaning. And so just trying to figure out if that was an intentional difference or just an oversight, because I think all the other drafts were changed to fit the only those with an employment relationship. And then I think to the earlier comment, it would be helpful whether in some kind of side comment or elsewhere to have the rationale for changes. So for example, if it's reflecting changes in the law, for example, a lot of the student data privacy type issues that have changed, or if it's addressed elsewhere in the policy and therefore redundant, no longer necessary, I think that can help us head off a lot of questions. And so having the red line is helpful to show changes draft over draft, but having a side comment or some kind of explanation or footnote that explains why certain changes were made will help us head off, I think, a lot of questions, especially from the public related to this. And then lastly, I think when I heard the internal process, I know we have internal staff making the actual edits. To what extent are council, our partners at CSBA and others involved in this initial set of drafts?
Thank you for that. So we definitely have direct involvement from council in these. And so part of the process from the selection of the items, because the list is very long. As you know, there are several hundred board policies, and they're on a rotating basis, they're being updated, or suggested changes are being updated by CSBA. And so we initiated a ranking process relative to which board policies we would bring in this first batch. Our legal counsel was involved in that conversation. In vetting the policies themselves, we relied on the CSBA process, the gamut process. But given the questions related to the specification of the sexual harassment pertaining to employees, and then the question as to policy update recommendations that don't specifically state that or refer to any person on a school campus, then we'll have direct, more meaningful engagement with legal counsel in order to provide the board with a summary, essentially giving some clear response to each of those questions. And we'll actually add that as part of the cover document for this policy.
And just to follow up on that, thank you, Superintendent. 4219.11 redlined is the draft that I was referring to. Several of sexual harassment drafts make the same edits in terms of adding sex to the list and harassment based on pregnancy, childbirth, but that was the one that didn't include the follow-up language about other persons with an employment relationship with the district, while also striking into other persons on district property. So wanted to make sure that was intentional. And then one other comment I wanted to make, one of the new policies we have added is actually related to our earlier point, 7310, naming of facilities. So the language in this, as I'm reading it, seems to be somewhat restrictive. It says the Board of Trustees shall name district schools and other district-owned or leased buildings, specifically based on individuals who have contributed to the school community, individuals living or deceased who've made a significant impact to national worldwide events, or the geographic area in which the school or building is located. I know that when we had our campus swap with Fiesta Gardens and College Park, both of those schools internally had discussions, not necessarily with district input or oversight, about whether or not they wanted to explore a name change. And for Fiesta Gardens, the comment was, it was tied to a community, it's no longer in that community. And so in some ways that already violates the process that we would have committed to, forward-looking, I know, here. College Park has nothing to do with any of 1, 2, or 3. Leda Elementary's name doesn't have anything with 1, 2, or 3. I agree with the general intent that as a starting point, and maybe most of the time, if not all the time looking forward, it makes sense to restrict naming to one of these 3, or at least for these to be the starting point. But I do wonder if it makes sense to have something that explicitly tying our hands when clearly our district and communities in our district have gone a different direction. So I would just caution against making this unnecessarily restrictive, while we can maybe state a preference for these 3 categories. And I'm sure I'll have comments on other similar measures as well, but appreciate the process of updating these and also making sure they're open not just for board review, but for public comment.
Yeah, I mean, we could just change shall to may.
To May, right.
And then,
I would give that right now.
Yeah, and I think, the temperature on Cottage Grove and, just the situation that we have in our district currently, this is a good time to be considering changes and we can bring back to the board a version that has a more flexible word that would facilitate a name change. I think, it wouldn't take very much work for you to just Google school considers name change, and then people get really, really tense about that. And school board meeting rooms fill up really quick. And it can sometimes get political, and it can sometimes get divisive. So I think what's nice about using may is it really does give that option without, as you pointed out, locking us in to be able to do so. Yeah.
What about, so on that same policy, there's a section that says you shouldn't name a school that's going to cause confusion to the members of the community. What does that mean? Because I read the article about Horrell changing to a lead, and they said Horrell was confusing because it rhymed with Laurel, and now College Park and Cottage Grove sound similar. So what does confusion mean? Because
what is intended is to avoid, because some districts are very large. So again, this is a process to try to give a policy recommendation that's so broad that it can sort of work anywhere. But there are districts with hundreds of schools, and so you want to avoid having I'll just use an example of a typical name, but two Westview schools. There's Westview Academy and there's Westview K-8, or two Abraham Lincoln School, those sort of duplications, because it does, create confusion ultimately in terms of what school people are talking about. And I think in our case, Horrell, the sound of it is similar to Laurel. So, but I think that was also during a time where the school naming process maybe didn't follow the board policy super closely. And now we're just sort of in a different place. But someone was here when we were debating that, so let us know, Susie.
Laurel used to be Laurel Wood, and they took the wood off, so that's where that,
Okay,
and
wow.
if you think about Blank Park, there's so many, College Park and
Beach Park.
Beach Park and on. And I remember when they were saying, oh, we think we're gonna do
San Mateo Park.
yes, something park, and everybody, when they came up
Although
with
they just
Beach
call
Park,
that park school,
oh
so.
no, another park, so it's been a long time. There's been a lot of that, so.
Yeah.
But leave was not ever brought before. It was just a change that happened, and people were surprised.
And if I could just add, I think to echo Trustee Proctor's point, one concern I have with some of the new policies is, making them unnecessarily restrictive when they don't need to be. I think there are things that we have as preferences that don't need to be explicitly laid out as policy that will then tie our hands and tie the hands of future boards or require a much more dramatic process to overhaul. So whether we're dealing with things like bylaws or board policies, I definitely think obviously some of the ones, especially on harassment, need to be outlined explicitly, just under existing law and under the policies that we've set forth previously. But I do think there are some like these that I understand why we're exploring them, but I would just caution against having words like shall name district schools that unnecessarily restrict us, or to Trustee Proctor's point, even just that point in general, when we only have a little over 20 campuses is very different than if you're LAUSD.
Thank you for that input. Thank you, Susan. Are there any online comment related to this agenda item, Joe?
I do not see any public comments on Zoom.
Thank you. All right, we will move to item 7D.
Thank you, President Brooks. Joe, if you could put on the community visioning one-pager. For members of the community who have been receiving our emails now for multiple months talking about our new community strategic plan process, tonight's update is an opportunity to share some, what I think are some pretty exciting developments in the last 30 days, and to invite people's participation through the very multi-layered and accessible ways that we plan to do so. So for the sake of bringing everybody up to speed, about a year ago, we initiated a process with an organization called the Bay Ed Fund. The Bay Ed Fund are our partners. They are folks that work with us hand in hand. They are committed to helping our district move education forward in a manner that reflects the vision of the board and that ultimately addresses the needs of our community. And to that end, they have made an $850,000 commitment to us for this school year to initiate and implement and guide a community strategic plan process that you see before you. As part of our contract with the Bay Ed Fund, we've brought on a partner called the New Teacher Project, or you might hear them referred to as TNTP. TNTP is an organization that does a wide variety of consultative work with school districts, classroom work, visioning work, analysis and data work. And in our case, they're going to be the engine behind our community strategic plan process. On September 3rd, next week, we're going to have a big party twice at Meadow Heights Elementary School. First is going to happen at 11 in the morning, where we plan to have 40 middle schoolers from the San Mateo-Foster City School District, representing every school that educates middle schoolers, in attendance, and we plan to take them through a initial student visioning process for the district. At 6 p.m. that night, we will have a follow-up event at the same school at Meadow Heights. We currently have 200 adults registered and RSVP'd to attend. And the list of attendees is some really, really fun people that the board knows, and a lot of families we don't know yet, but we are going to get to know. At present, all 21 schools are represented. At present, we have multiple languages represented. We will have food and childcare translation available, and it's going to happen in one of our new facilities, and it's a gorgeous facility, so it's going to be a great opportunity to create community. And the outcome of the meeting will be folks in that room understanding what it means to volunteer to serve on the vision design team, what it means to volunteer for our working group, what focus group meetings will look like, and then how many surveys and what different ways we plan on interacting with the community. For the sake of tonight's presentation, the design team is a ton of time and a ton of work. These are like full day sessions that people are signing up for. It isn't for the faint of heart. It's for folks who have the time and want to make the time to be on at the table. The visioning working group will come up 4 different times throughout the year. And these are much bigger convenings. This will probably have 120, 150, maybe even 200 people at these meetings. Really rigorous meetings, like wonderful experiences, and really an opportunity to source more feedback and more ideas from a larger group than the vision design team. The focus groups, we actually have a list of 20 different focus groups throughout the district's broader community, capital C community. And we will initiate a process to invite folks to participate in 1 hour long focus group interviews. You can think of it as like sitting in a room with 8 to 12 people and having one topic be discussed, and then just essentially having a TNTP staff person guide you through a group conversation. And then we'll have community surveys that go out in multiple languages throughout the year, sourcing and gathering feedback. At the same time, where this is going and what this is about our school board having an opportunity to through this 1 year of community visioning to essentially get the encyclopedia from your constituents on where folks in this district want us to go in a way that's very aspirational, in a way that's student-centered, in a way that's equity-driven. So it aligns with all of the board's vision and point of view. But it's going to be a really exciting time to walk in and listen and talk less. And in that vein, I'm going to wrap up here by saying, I also want the board to be, and the community to be aware, in order to achieve balance and in order to achieve a well-roundedness of conversation, we are being very intentional about finding schools where we don't have as much participation and picking up the phone and calling people. So we don't have like 73 people from one school and 2 from another. We are going towards a lot of balance. And so when we walk into those spaces, it is going to be very special because it's going to be the first time for many people to be in one place with people from so many different communities. And Maggie, you showed me a picture of the Sunnybray back to school night, which was like, there were like 150 people, and it was so many people in that picture. I was like, how many chairs do we have at that school? But you know, you're all Sunnybray families. So you're going to have one conversation. It's going to be really rooted in Sunnybray, and that's great. What's going to be really fascinating about this process is you're going to have 10 Sunnybray families with 10 Brewer Island families with 10 North Shoreview families, and so on and so forth. And I think that is a very exciting dynamic and a really, wonderful opportunity that we don't necessarily always get, because as you know, we are stretched out over a pretty big, piece of land here, but we're also like 22 school communities. So it can be hard to really get that sense of unity. And that's what's before us. So the update tonight is informational, no vote is required, but I want to be able to pass it back to the board for any questions on the process or any comments you have.
Anyone?
I'll do just a quick comment. I will say I'm very grateful to the Bay Ed Fund and TNTP for being partners with us on this. I actually had lunch with several trustees from other neighboring districts in the past week, and many of them commented on the fact that they're really excited that we're launching on this. They were envious of the fact that we had this partnership. They were closely following their previous work in South City and Ravenswood, and so very excited to see what comes out of this. I think all of us on the board are very excited about it as well. I also wanted to say, I really appreciate what the superintendent said about how intentional we're being about including voices. And I think Dr. Rubalcaba with community schools, but so much of the work we've done previously has been recognizing that typically the folks who show up to the meeting, the loudest voices in the room, the people who always make public comments are not representative of 100% of the families and communities we serve. And the fact that we are so intentional about that in terms of reaching out to make sure different voices are included, and to the superintendent's point, even chasing folks down essentially, because when you talk about the heavy lift of being on the design team, we know that there are certain folks who will naturally not gravitate towards a role like that. But the fact that we then have the working group, we then have the focus groups, and we're again, through all the work we've done to build trust and to build community, we have a much better methodology and approach to making sure those voices are included. I think that gives me a lot of hope about how this process will roll out. And just again, always grateful that our staff is so in tune about those realities and making sure that those are all going to be a part of this conversation.
I just wanted to echo Trustee Kim's comments. Having been in different districts, just like you were saying, this is something that really I haven't seen. It's very rare that something of this scope, is accessible to us. And so I just really appreciate just how comprehensive each piece is, how well thought. It really shows a deep understanding of our communities and who we serve, and making sure all voices are at the table. And I also like that the action plan created is going to be homegrown, right, by our communities, and having a third party in the Bay Ed Fund. I would like to hope and think that it allows the communities to be more honest, with their feedback. It's not like they're talking directly to us, right, but they're going through another group. And built-in systems of accountability. It's just really, I'm very thankful for the Bay Ed Fund. It's just a really amazing gift for our district.
Thank you. Joel, can you please check to see if there are any comments online?
Yes, President Brooks. Checking. No public comments on Zoom at this time.
Right. All right, we will move to 7E. Approval of employment contracts.
That's me again.
Exciting.
Exciting, and one of the folks is here with us, so
Yes.
congratulations to
Yeah.
her. And as we've done in other school district reorganizations, part of what we do strategically, myself, Patrick Gaffney, the school board, in conjunction with us, is we analyze the needs of the district, we create new positions, eliminate other positions, we find savings where we can. We are looking forward to a really strong school year, and that's already begun on a really positive note. And we have 3 administrators that are listed here: Heather Morgan, Stephanie Fermeni, and Dr. Margaret Heredia Peltz, who are all being recommended for 4-year contracts under the title of Executive Director of Human Resources, Special Education, and Student Services. The term of the employment is through July 2025 and June 30th, 2029. One of the benefits of these multi-year contracts is the culture it creates of consistency and continuity, ensuring that our programs are led by proven, qualified, effective leaders who are committed to ensuring growth and achievement, wellness, and equity, which, as you know, are our 3 strategic plan goals for now. And with that, those contracts are publicly posted, but I'll pass it to the board for any questions or comments. And the recommendation is that we approve these multi-year contracts.
Well, I would like to say that I appreciate the efforts that we make to bring these contracts. Stabilization of our staff is very important. And so for me, I'm greatly appreciative of the contracts that we establish for our staff. Anyone else?
Yeah, I had one comment. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't see you down there. You sure? Okay. I appreciate all of this being brought forward, and I'm happy to approve this eventually in a few minutes. But I did want to make sure that on this item, we don't show the financial impact. And I want to be super transparent when we're bringing forward new contracts. Like, what are we talking about in terms of increases or changes? So just going forward, if we can make sure that's included. Thank you.
My comment was that, these 3 individuals are, have made such a wonderful impact already in our district, and it's so well-deserved for the 3 of you. And I'm really glad that we've locked you in for 4 years.
Any in-person comment? No? Okay. Can you please check online, Joe?
Yes, checking. No public comments on Zoom.
All right. Do we vote on this? All right. If we are ready to take a vote, I'll take the motion.
Motion to approve these 3 contracts.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Board member requests for future agenda items. Do we have any?
Yeah, I just have a very brief one, is to revisit. I think we had talked about earlier the statement at the top of the meeting to kind of explain where like public comment comes in, and to kind of make it more clear to anyone who's showing up for public comment for non-agenda items that we can't really respond to them. And then I think we've kind of moved things around. When students are here, we try to put them at the top. And so like maybe just setting that expectation for people so they understand like when we're going to call on them. That would be great. I would love to just get an update on that one.
So that request came in before I took presidency. That was my request. I'm not sure why it hasn't been updated.
We'll make that change.
But okay, so yeah, that should have been moved a while ago. Thank you. And then I would like to revisit the request to prioritize our TOSA assignments and really consider placing a TOSA to focus on bullying and, human kindness, and bringing an ongoing rotation of these important things, especially in light of this most recent school shooting that has happened. It's really devastating to our school community, and I think it's important that we prioritize these efforts in our district.
Just to kind of add to that, I know, I'm guessing some of the other trustees did as well. I got a lot of messages this week after the tragedy in Minneapolis about our district's own preparedness. And while I know that those policies are fully in place, that the sites are, have rehearsed everything, and we are even having a session next week, somewhat related, I do think it may be helpful to have a public session for especially the benefit of parents and others in the community to know what those types of protocols are, what those policies look like, what they should expect in, unfortunately, the worst case scenario. And so if there is room on the schedule for something along those lines after the meeting next week, it is something that I'd be interested in having, mainly for the public's benefit, to let them know about all the kinds of scenarios and protocols that we put in place.
Thank you. All right, any board member statements at this time?
Just a quick mention of at the end of the first week of school, I was able to visit Fiesta Gardens with Superintendent Ochoa, and also take a quick impromptu meeting with the preschool program as well. And I just am so excited about the changes that are happening at that campus. A lot of families walking to school, just like, all the kids can kind of go together from pre-K all the way to, it'll be 8th grade. And so just seeing the transformation and all of the improvements that are being added to that campus are really exciting to see.
I just wanted to echo the comments from President Brooks and Trustee Kim. Last week, I attended my own kids back to school night. And, when we all heard of the tragedy happening in Minnesota, that was their back to school mass. And, the student victims who had passed away were 8 and 10 years old. And that's about the age of my own children. And first I grieve for the families. And I wanted just to kind of take a moment and say, it's not about thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying. And echoing what President Brooks said, I really want to make sure that what we do value are our children's mental health, creating spaces of kindness and inclusion, and gun control.
Thank you.
I'll echo Trustee Ho's comments on that as well. I did want to speak specifically about the campus swap. I think our SPEDA representative spoke to it earlier. Trustee Trin addressed it as well, but especially as a College Park parent who was involved with the whole relocation committee, having the site meetings with Amy and others, going back and forth, all the planning that led up to it. I literally just got a text an hour before our meeting from a current College Park parent talking about how thrilled they are about the new site, about how things have gone well, have obviously heard about all the families walking to the new Fiesta Gardens campus. Something like that sounded like a logistical nightmare. It sounded like something that both communities kind of were very confused about, concerned about, and to see the aftermath of that come together the way it has, to see the traffic patterns improve, the commutes improved, both campus communities really thrilled about the changes, especially because for 2 years we were engaging a lot of the PTAs and others about their concerns in that process. It's just been really great to see our ability to take on those types of tasks. And so for whether it's a campus swap, all of the new construction, a lot of what we covered in this meeting today, it just feels like there's so much going right in our district. And just great to see the team that we put together, and a huge appreciation for all of our site leaders, all the administrators we have here, for their ability to execute on all of those tasks. And then just going back to the start of our meeting, I did want to thank the Ed Foundation, the Gilead Foundation, and all of our other community partners. I think when I talk about so many things moving in the right direction, to see the way our community comes together to address those issues. Also, I want to specifically call out the student who said she learned how to make paninis in middle school, because now I know what I want to encourage my kids to go learn, because that's exactly what I want in my own home. But I just think at a time when we're constantly talking about national uncertainty, fear, threats, and just a kind of general mood across the board, the fact that we here in our district are meeting with law enforcement and with our communities to talk about how we're going to address concerns around immigration. The fact that we're moving forward on so many projects, whether it's increasing sustainability or other values that are important to us, and making our campuses more accepting, more inclusive, more thoughtful at a time when other states or areas are retreating from that. It's just, again, really great to be part of this community of leaders, both in the district, but also our parents, our community partners, the foundations that we work with, and everyone else, really coming together to address the reality of the situation we're in, to move us forward in the way that we're collectively trying to do. And so, as I've said almost every meeting, being a trustee in the district during this time, I think it just takes a tremendous amount of pride in being part of the work that we're doing here, and always just excited to work with you all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Future meeting dates. We have a board study session scheduled for September 11th. That will be equity-focused student achievement. And our next regular board meeting is scheduled for September 25th. Joe, can you please check to see if there are any public comment on closed session items?
No public comments on closed session items.
Okay, with that, we will take a recess to close session. to reconvene. All right, we're ready to reconvene from closed session. Open session, the Board of Trustees took action to approve a settlement for claim 2002-00091, 50, approved unanimously. Item number 12A, 50 to approve the compromise agreement and Office of Administrative Hearing, case number 2025050-692 to resolve claims against the district in exchange for a total not to exceed $174,000. $750 in funding for student private education placement and services, and the total not to exceed $7,000 in associated attorney fees. With that, we are ready to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night.